Chapter 513. Chinyu knew that Blue Cloud had been hiding in the dark, waiting for a chance to take advantage of the situation and reap the benefits. At the start, this was also what he thought. But things always changed faster than he planned. The ancient tree monster had suddenly attacked, forcing him to reveal himself. Afterwards, he had fallen into a bitter battle. So even though he had killed the monster race Great Emperor, Chinyu couldn't help but feel excited. This was because he was well aware that these demon blood crystals wouldn't be his. He had already prepared to escape into the Saint's Sun token. He only needed a single thought to do so. But Chinyu never imagined that Blue Cloud, who was as pure as a lotus on the outside, but had a heart like a snake and scorpion, would actually have a 10,000 poison body. And more importantly, this little girl was now preparing to poison him to death. This made Chinyu feel as if a giant pie had fallen from the heavens. It was like he was going to strike it rich. Blue Cloud smiled. You won't feel pain right now. Rather, you will feel as if you were floating in the clouds. This sort of pleasure will become increasingly intense until it drowns out your consciousness. It is like falling asleep. Once you close your eyes, everything will be over. Her voice was gentle. You see, Big Sister always means what I say. You won't feel any pain at all. Chinyu's lips twitched. No, he had to endure it. He couldn't laugh. He had to appear as if he was in incomparable pain. He had to make this little girl continue to inject poison into his body. It wasn't enough right now. He lowered his head, not saying a word. His body shivered. This was the result of holding back a laugh. But in Blue Cloud's eyes, this was normal. It was just that this boy's mortal body seemed to be extremely strong. Even though so much poison had been injected into his body, he still hadn't fallen down. But this was clearly a good thing. The more powerful the mortal body, the more strength it contained. Once his mortal body and soul melted, she could pour in demon blood crystals. Then, she could let go and enjoy a delicious meal. Just thinking about it made her drool. How come it hadn't started to melt yet? Blue Cloud frowned. She suddenly felt that something wasn't right. But before she could respond, Chinyu, who had been enduring the corrosion of the poison, suddenly looked up and smiled at her. Blue Cloud's heart trembled. She felt as if her life or death had instantly slipped out of her control. Without any time to think, she began to retreat. However, she only took a step back before she was suddenly pulled back. Her eyes widened as she looked at her feet. The black vines that had spread out had unexpectedly wrapped around her body at some point in time. Moreover, on the surface of the vine's pure black surface, there was a faint blue color. Because it was extremely dim, if one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't notice it at all. What left Blue Cloud feeling a chill run down her spine was that she had already lost control of these vines. They were like shackles that completely locked her and Chinyu down. Who exactly are you? Chinyu asked in a low voice. On Chinyu's face, the black gas produced by the poison began to rapidly recede like a tide. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. If I had to describe it, then I should be considered an unqualified oriole hunter. Chinyu blinked. What do you mean? Chinyu smiled. What I mean is, I was originally planning on running away, but you delivered yourself to my door, so I can only reluctantly accept you. Chinyu bit her lips. Can you let me go? Chinyu shook his head. I can't. He suddenly said, was it your doing that caused those people to suddenly fall into depravity? Chinyu was startled. She immediately smiled and nodded. That's right. It was Big Sister who gave them some pills that contained demonic power to help them restore their strength as soon as possible. Her eyes suddenly turned gray, and her smile became even more charming. Little brother, has anyone ever told you not to speak nonsense when it's time to kill someone? Otherwise, you likely won't have a good ending. The black vines that wrapped around the two suddenly turned gray. Thus, the faint blue lines became clear. You could clearly feel the poison that was injected into his body through the vines. It was clearly even more terrifying, and the scope of its damage wasn't limited to the body, but the soul. But to Chinyu, this could be clearly expressed with a single word: useless. The smile on Chinyun's face stiffened. This was because she discovered that Chinyu's complexion hadn't changed at all. Impossible. The myriad poison body was born with destruction. As one walked between the heavens and earth, they would naturally absorb toxic substances. Even if they didn't cultivate, they would still become increasingly strong. Moreover, Qingyun had been chosen by the sage a long time ago to become the new protector of her race. She had obtained countless terrifying poisons that were rarely seen in the world. These poisons entered the myriad poison body. After fusing, transforming, and mutating, they gradually formed their life poison. This was the most terrifying aspect of the myriad poison body. Their mortal body could be cultivated into the most terrifying poisons in the world. Even a transcendent calamity, immortal realm existence wouldn't dare to be contaminated by it. More often than not, just a little bit of it would be enough to turn a large city into a dead zone. Qingyun's life poison was particularly fierce. The sage once said that even a calamity immortal supreme elder wouldn't be able to escape from it. They could only rely on their cultivation to resist it, and in the end, the poison would invade their soul and extinguish their will. Of course, the premise of this was that she could send the poison into the body of a calamity immortal. But this was clearly an extremely difficult task. What Qingyun injected into Qinyu's body was her life poison. Moreover, in order to be safe, she had injected a great deal of it. This was already a heavy loss to her. But what did she see now? Qinyu was fine. Nothing had happened to him at all. The poison that was enough to kill 10 million people had disappeared without a trace. Qingyun panicked. This was her greatest trump card. If she still couldn't kill Qinyu, then the consequences, she didn't dare to think about them, nor did she want to think about them. Die. Go die. With a loud scream, Qingyun disregarded her own losses. She wildly poured her life poison into the vine. Faint traces of gray appeared on the ground. Then it rapidly spread outwards like frost that formed in late autumn. This was the leakage of poison aura. Even if it was only a weak portion, it was enough to turn this area into a barren wasteland. Even if 10,000 years passed, no vegetation would be able to grow here. Qinyu's calm eyes revealed a trace of pity. He could imagine Qingyun's anger and unwillingness right now. Originally, she should have been the ultimate winner, but without any warning, she had failed and ended up in her current state. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't be able to accept this. But Qinyu wouldn't be soft-hearted, because this was a man-eating world to begin with. If he didn't kill Qingyun, he would die. Her life poison flowed out at an astonishing speed, like a broken dam. Qingyun's face gradually paled, and the fear in her eyes became increasingly heavy. She no longer hoped that she could poison Qinyu to death. She tried her best to restrain the poison in her body so that it wouldn't continue to flow out. 10,000 poison body. Poison was her life force. Once the poison in her body was exhausted, she would welcome death. Qinyu lightly said, "Don't you think it's too late to stop now?" He looked up, his eyes cold and indifferent. Bang! A terrifying suction force erupted. Qinyu turned into a human-shaped black hole. The vine that connected the two of them began to violently tremble. Ah! Qingyun screamed miserably. Her body twitched as she fell to the ground. She loudly begged for mercy, promising countless conditions. As long as Qinyu was willing to spare her life, she was willing to do anything. Qinyu didn't doubt her attitude at all. When a person was on the verge of death, they would do anything to survive. But his eyes remained cold. How could he trust such a woman with a heart as sharp as a snake? Qingyun's screams became increasingly intense. "Save me! Hurry and save me!" Although she had promised not to reveal any information, she couldn't care too much about this at this time. In the treehouse, Sage's face was filled with anger. He never imagined that things would develop to this step. Hearing Qingyun's cry for help, his complexion became increasingly ugly. He took a deep breath and slowly reached out a hand. The old palm hung in the air. After a brief pause, it slowly pressed down. It wasn't just to save Qingyun, but to kill Qinyu. He could not allow such a proud son of heaven to exist in the demonic path. His talent was already unrivaled under the heavens. If he obtained today's good fortune, he would surely be able to suppress the world. He had to kill him. Thinking of this, a cold light shined in Sage's eyes. Rumble, rumble. In the skies above the small world, winds began to stir. Countless pitch-black clouds tumbled and gathered together, turning into a terrifying hand. This hand was astonishing. It nearly occupied the entire skies and slowly pressed down towards the earth. Even before it descended, its destructive aura had already locked onto Qin Yu. Qin Yu's body shook and he looked up. As he saw this terrifying hand, his pupils shrank. Who was it that attacked? Could there be someone hidden in this small world that he hadn't discovered yet? But if this person had such strength, he could easily kill all of them. Why would he go through so much trouble? Qin Yu never imagined that Sage's actions today were extremely secretive. He didn't want to reveal anything in order to avoid being discovered by the demonic path. But now, he had no other choice. He could only brazenly attack and exterminate this person. Within his soul space, the cosmic sea-cross bell wildly trembled, resisting the terrifying suppression that descended upon his soul. At the same time, the purple moon and blue sun shined brightly, and a burning feeling spread through his body once more. Suddenly, the space in front of Qin Yu collapsed inwards. A great sun appeared from within, its light so vast that no one dared to look straight at it. Qin Yin miserably cried out. The rate at which the poison flowed out of her body suddenly rose, completely plundering her in the blink of an eye. Her flesh and blood withered. Her beautiful face turned into a skeleton. All of this happened in just a single breath of time. Ha! Her corpse fell to the ground. Perhaps she never imagined that she would die in this small world, but she had died like this. Countless years of bitter cultivation had vanished into nothingness before she could illuminate the world. Destiny was like this. Even if it seemed bright and resplendent, the truth was that it was filled with black holes. You could hope for it, but you could never control it. The sage's lips twitched. There was no need to describe the heartache he felt for having so many years of cultivation destroyed in a single day. But right now, he couldn't care less about Qin Yun's life or death. His pupils shrank, and he stepped forwards. His gaze pierced through space and looked towards the great sun in the void. Although he didn't know what this great sun was, his instinct screamed out in fear. Even more than that, there was greed and desire. At this moment, a thought suddenly appeared in the sage's mind. As long as he could obtain this great sun, the monster race would become invincible in the future. The fate of their race would be thoroughly changed. Obtain it, no matter the price. He had to obtain it. The sage's eyes burned with a burning heat. He gasped for breath, and his hand fell even faster. Qin Yu never imagined that the little blue lamp would be forced to descend into this small world on its own initiative. For it to do this was enough to prove just how terrifying this palm was. He absolutely could not clash with it. His thoughts stirred. Qin Yu wanted to escape into the Saint's Sun token. He hoped that this Saint's Sun token from the Nine-Realm Holy Land could block this terrifying strike. At the very least, he had to offset the majority of the strength and fight for a slim chance of survival. After killing one, another came, and each one was fiercer than the last. Was there no end to this motherfucker? As Qin Yu cursed inwardly, he felt an intense burning pain on his back. The demon head hidden in his flesh and blood reappeared. It opened its eyes and looked up into the skies, emitting a silent roar. Rumble, rumble. Within the small world, a million bolts of thunder appeared at the same time. The billowing sound waves shook mountains and rivers, and countless trees were instantly turned to powder. Above the terrifying hand, even higher in the skies, a demon head appeared, a raging sea of blood in its eyes. Within the study, the sage's eyes blazed with heat, as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over him. He revealed a look of unwillingness. But in the blink of an eye, he had already made his decision. He took a deep breath and suppressed his tumbling emotions. Then, he stepped forwards, and the floor of the cabin instantly cracked apart. Blood gushed out, forming a pool of blood. The sage drew back his hand and fell backwards, his entire body submerged in blood. In the next moment, the blood pool tumbled and bubbles drilled out. It was like boiling water, constantly evaporating the blood. After several breaths of time, the blood pool had completely dried up. The sage's figure had already vanished from sight. The giant hand that fell from the skies lost the support of its following strength. After continuing downwards, it was unable to maintain the boundless strength and directly exploded in midair. Bang! A visible shockwave swept out in all directions, tearing apart the clouds and causing the skies to brighten. Chinyu narrowed his eyes. His black robes fluttered about him. He didn't move. His eyes fell on the demon head that appeared in the skies, his thoughts rapidly racing. When the demon ascension gate opened, this demon head had been on the gate. At that time, his back had been burning with a burning pain. Today, in order to deal with that heaven-shaking strike, when the demon head appeared in the skies, he felt a burning pain on his back once more. Could this demon head in the skies be related to him in some way? Chinyu hadn't forgotten that when he was hunting down the demon wolf king, the strength that had suddenly descended and imprisoned the demon wolf king's self-destruction might have come from this demon head. Thinking about it, the only possibility was that he had obtained Ning Ling's demonic bloodline. This was because when he obtained her bloodline in the past, Ning Ling had drawn a demon head on his back. As soon as this thought appeared, a bolt of lightning tore through Chinyu's mind. Behind him, that blurry and indistinct demon head that he couldn't sense suddenly appeared. It was exactly the same as the devilish head that had appeared in the sky. Chinyu didn't have the chance to be stunned or cry out in alarm. This was because when the demon head behind him clearly appeared, a resonance suddenly arrived. And the two sides that resonated were the demon head behind him and the demon head in the skies. His mind trembled. An ancient and boundless aura instantly covered his soul. A deep and dignified whisper spread into his ears. This was a language that Chinyu didn't understand, but strangely enough, he understood its meaning. This was because this was a bloodline resonance. Only a demonic bloodline of the same origin could activate it and obtain the inheritance contained within. And the core of this inheritance was the imprisonment. Chinyu naturally became aware of this. He had obtained Ning Ling's bloodline, and its name was Forbidden Blood. This small world was constructed with the ancient tree monster as its foundation. The reason it was able to exist until now was because it had fused with the Forbidden Bloodline, allowing it to suppress everything around it. The world gate is about to open. Junior, you don't know how many years have passed. You don't have much time left. Could it be that you want to leave the demon blood crystal to others? The demon head in the skies looked deeply at Chinyu. There was actually a bit of warmth and gratification in its crimson sea of blood. In the next moment, it vanished from sight. Chinyu bowed, a bit of guilt in his heart. This was because he was well aware that he didn't have any bloodline. But as he thought about how there was no distinction between him and Ning Ling, he calmed down. Looking up at the demon blood crystal, Chinyu endured his injuries and struggled up from the ground, walking towards it. Heavenly Demon City. A terrifying aura was like an invisible mountain, pressing down on everyone's hearts. The entire city was silent. No one dared to make a single sound. This was because the entrance to the Demon Ascension Gate's small world had yet to open. The demonic path almighty figures had tried all sorts of methods, but they hadn't made any progress. Somewhere in a grand hall, the burning torches couldn't tear through the darkness. As far as the eye could see, it was still shrouded in darkness. A giant demon statue stood there. Two demonic path priests respectfully stood at its side. Not too far away was a white-robed figure. This person held his hands behind his back as he stood in front of the demon statue. His back was straight, and there wasn't the least bit of awe in him. But the two demonic path priests seemed to be blind, turning a blind eye to this blasphemous scene. This was because this person was the walking incarnation of a demon in this world. Beneath the white robes was a man who seemed to be in his 30s. His aura was filled with the vicissitudes of time, and he gave off a tranquil feeling. He wasn't tall or large, but he gave off an unsurpassable feeling. Why? The white-robed man asked in a soft voice. His calm voice constantly echoed through the grand hall. There was silence, but he frowned, as if he had obtained some sort of response. The two priests bowed even more deeply. Deep reverence appeared on their extremely aged faces. The white-robed man continued to say, "Open the small world. I need to know just what happened." There was another period of silence. The white-robed man frowned. With a simple movement, the darkness in the grand hall suddenly condensed, as if it were about to freeze over. After several breaths of time, he let out a deep breath. "I have at most 2 hours to open the small world. Otherwise, I will personally do it." He turned and walked away, his figure submerging into the darkness. The two priests bowed. "We respectfully bid Lord Demon Envoy farewell." Within the small world, in a chaotic space, a towering skeleton was sitting cross-legged. The reason it could be described as towering was because this skeleton was far too astonishing. Even sitting on the ground, it was still several thousand feet tall. If it stood up, it would inevitably surpass 10,000 feet. Every bone seemed to be made of translucent jade. Countless lines were faintly discernible on their surface, giving off a different sense of beauty. As one looked at them, it felt as if their entire mind would be pulled out, sinking into these lines, unable to escape. Suddenly, deep within the skeleton's eye sockets, two extremely dark purple lights appeared. They slowly and painfully throbbed. "My lineage has actually not been severed. Ha ha! The will of the heavens. Everything is the will of the heavens. Everything that the demonic path owes me will be collected by my descendants on my behalf. In the land of divinity and demons, a storm is about to rise. This world will be thrown into chaos. I can already see mountains of corpses and seas of blood, the lives in misery and suffering. My descendant, I hope that you can ride the storm and take back everything that our lineage has lost." The low roar reverberated through the chaos space. The ancient tree monster had completely withered away. The yellow leaves on the ground were hundreds of feet deep. The withered branches stretched into the skies, like unwilling bone hands that emitted silent cries. Suddenly, a strong wind rose up in this lonely world, sweeping up the fallen leaves and sending them flying into the skies. Amongst the flying leaves, a black-robed figure stood tall. He looked up at the skies above his head and stepped forwards. Ripples appeared in the air, as if they were water, allowing him to pass through. Chapter 514. Dawn Perch Inn was one of the largest inns in Heavenly Demon City. The front courtyard was used for dining and entertainment, and the back courtyard was used for lodging. The magnificent building stretched out along the beautiful scenery of Bright Dawn Lake, surrounding most of the lake area. There was even a large net set up in the middle of the lake, occupying a large portion of the lake for private use. For Dawn Perch Inn to be able to accomplish these things, its background wasn't simple at all. Duan San-Er's application to be a manservant here made him feel proud and elated. The daughter of old second son's family didn't even look at him in the eye before, but now the one who gave him autumn spinach was enough to kill him. Not to mention anything else, just the generous salary and generous tips were enough to make one envious. 2 days ago, Duan San had clenched his teeth and switched to a Pear-brand fruit hand phone. The eyes of the Sun family's daughter had turned into little hooks, causing him to be secretly pleased with himself. But at the same time, his heart was also racing. But these days, Duan Sinner had been walking with the wind, carefully tucking his tail between his legs. Recently, the atmosphere in the city had been strange. It was said that even the true demon guard stationed at the Holy Palace had come. It was clear that something monumental had occurred. The Demon Ascension Gate's grand ceremony had ended, but the usual celebration ceremony hadn't been held. Thinking back to the rumors he had heard a few days ago, Duan San shrunk his neck. He quickly walked along the roadside and finally entered the inn. Only then did he relax. The shopkeeper had a bad complexion. "Why didn't you come earlier? The inn is so busy. Did you have to wait until later?" Duan San apologized. In truth, the shopkeeper wasn't a bad person. It was just that the atmosphere in the city had become tense and the income from the front courtyard's entertainment venues had sharply decreased. The shopkeeper, who valued money above all else, was now in a very bad mood. He quickly changed his clothes, carefully combed his hair, and put on a small black hat. Then, he walked behind the counter and began to work. His luck was pretty good. Just as he stood there to catch his breath, a guest arrived. This could be considered his performance, and he would be able to obtain a commission from this guest spending. "Welcome, guest. How can I help you?" Duan San brightly smiled. In truth, although his name was a bit rotten, his appearance was quite good. He gave off the feeling of a pretty boy. Accommodation. Duan San was discouraged. Of all the commissions, accommodation was the least, but his smile didn't diminish in the slightest. After receiving the identity card issued by the Black Demon sect and verifying the information, Duan San said, "That's enough. May I ask what requirements guest has for the accommodation environment?" Open a quiet, independent courtyard. Duan San-er's spirit shook, and he subconsciously glanced at the guest in front of him. He was wearing a simple black robe without any unnecessary accessories, and besides a pair of relatively bright eyes, he was completely unremarkable. Sure enough, you can't judge a book by its cover. Casually booking an independent courtyard was much more expensive than a single room. Similarly, the commission was also very generous. "Customer, please wait a moment." Duan San-er's movements were even more nimble. He quickly found the room's information and smiled. "Dear guest, your luck is really good. We only have one independent courtyard left, and the environment is absolutely quiet. If you had come a bit later, I'm afraid it would have been gone." "Wait," someone interrupted. "You said there's only one independent courtyard?" Duan San-er looked up and saw that the speaker was a middle-sized young man in the back of the line. At a glance, his clothes and accessories made him think of the word nouveau riche. Coupled with his arrogant attitude and disdainful eyes, it was obvious that he was not an ordinary person. How could he dare to offend him? "Yes, dear guest, there's only one left." Shirziji lightly said, "We want this courtyard." He flicked his sleeves. "We will pay double the price." Duan San-er sighed inwardly, but he revealed an awkward expression. Although he wanted to earn more, he was afraid of ruining the inn's reputation. "This, dear guest, you see, the guest in front came first. You can discuss this among yourselves." Shirziji frowned. "Brat, if you know what's good for you, then leave. If you ruin my mood, you won't have a good time." In front of the counter, a black-robed figure turned around, revealing a calm expression. His calm eyebrows were slightly furrowed. It was Chinyu, who had just left the small world. "Big brother, don't be rude." Without waiting for him to say anything, the beautiful female cultivator pouted and bowed. "Fellow Taoist, I am really sorry. It's just that there are many people in our group, so it is more convenient to live in the courtyard. I see that fellow Taoist is alone. So how about giving up the courtyard, and we will be responsible for paying the bill. We will also choose a quiet room for fellow Taoist. I wonder if fellow Taoist is willing?" Shirziji wanted to say something, but the woman glared at him. He coughed a few times in dissatisfaction and then bitterly shut his mouth. Chinyu was silent for a moment. He nodded, "All right." Duan San-er hurriedly opened a room and offered the room card and identity card with both hands. "Dear guest, please accept this. When you arrive at the rear courtyard, someone will naturally bring you to your room." Chinyu turned and left. Shirziji unhappily said, "Little sister, there are so many people here. Can you give me some face? How could we let this boy take advantage of us for nothing?" Shir Ching humphed. Heavenly Demon City is in a tense situation. Before we came, Father told us not to stir up any trouble. "Big brother, you had best behave yourself, otherwise I will complain to Father." As she spoke, she looked at Chinyu's back. Her beautiful eyebrows furrowed together, revealing a bit of hesitation. Although this person looked ordinary, she didn't know why, but she always felt that it was best not to provoke him. Shirziji had an embarrassed expression. To be an older brother who had to be controlled by his little sister when he went out wasn't a glorious matter at all. He viciously glared at Duan San-er, who was trying not to laugh. "What are you looking at? Hurry up and do something." The shopkeeper's old face was filled with wrinkles. "You disgraceful thing! You can't do anything right, and yet you dare to neglect an honored guest? Scram out and do something. I will personally receive you." Duan San was unwilling, but he didn't dare to talk back. He left with a bitter expression and just happened to see Qin Yu walking towards the rear courtyard of the inn. His eyes brightened, and he quickly followed. This person wasn't lacking in spirit stones. If he served him, he might be able to make up for it. He had just lost a great deal of commission, so he had to think a way to make up for it. Thinking of this, Duan San quickened his pace, almost running to catch up. "Dear guest, I will accompany you to your room." Qin Yu nodded, not saying anything. Duan San quickly took 2 steps forward. He slightly bowed, a bright smile on his face as he led the way. After entering the rear courtyard, the young servant responsible for leading the way saw Duan San follow them, and his complexion became a bit ugly. But as he looked behind him and saw that it was only Qin Yu, he cursed in a low voice and pretended not to see him. A lone guest didn't seem to have much to gain from this, so it wasn't good for this boy to take advantage of him. Duan San relaxed. He thought to himself that this boy had made a mistake this time. "Dear guest, we have arrived. This is your room. There's a landline in the room. If you have any needs, you can call the front desk according to the manual. We will serve you wholeheartedly." Duan San smile was incomparably sincere. Unfortunately, Qin Yu's mind was full of thoughts. He didn't notice Duan San's thoughts at all. He nodded and walked in. Bang! The door closed. This wasn't right. Duan San was dumbfounded. His lips moved, but in the end he didn't dare to say anything. He lowered his head and left. At the entrance to the rear courtyard, the young servant responsible for leading the way sneered as he saw Duan San's appearance. This young master's discerning eyes had never misjudged a person. He had worked hard for nothing. How delightful! After greeting him with a smile, Duan San nodded in embarrassment and hurried away. After the shopkeeper received an extra sum of spirit stones, he was in a much better mood and began to train his subordinates. Duan San nearly broke his legs from running around, but he soon threw this gloominess to the back of his mind. By the time he thought about it again, it was already 2 days later. He had been assigned by the shopkeeper to inspect the cleaning work. To put it bluntly, he had to continue cleaning. As he picked up the rag and his back was aching, he heard the sound of footsteps behind him. As he thought about the floor he had just wiped clean, Duan San's face turned green. But the guest was God. Just as he was about to squeeze out a smile and say welcome, he suddenly froze in place. His entire body was covered in black scales, and even his face was covered. From head to toe, the only thing that could be seen were his eyes. The floor had turned black from being stepped on. But at this time, how could Duan San be in the mood to care about such things? His mind was buzzing. Faint traces of infernal energy slithered around him like small snakes, drilling into his robes and sticking to his body. The een chill penetrated deep into his heart. Duan San's teeth began to chatter. Duan San tottered. Just who were these people? Their auras were so terrifying. "Mommy, I want to cry." As Duan San was about to cry, another group of cultivators walked towards him. The one leading them was Ziji. This young master of the Shi family didn't seem to be in a good mood. He had a gloomy expression as he hurried forwards. When he heard the sound of footsteps, he looked up with an impatient expression. But when he saw who it was, his impatient expression instantly froze. His pupils violently shrank, revealing a look of shock and awe. True demon guards. Qingqing grabbed her brother and pulled him to the side of the road. Ziji regained his composure and hurriedly bowed along with everyone else. These were the true demon guards that guarded the Holy Palace. They were loyal to the demonic path's Holy Lord and had an incomparably revered status with great authority. This was because the position of the Holy Lord had been vacant these past years, and the true demon guards had remained within the Holy Palace. Gradually, no one knew of their influence. But as long as they had some background, they absolutely wouldn't provoke these true demon guards. That was no different from seeking death. And what was even more frustrating was that even if they died, they would have died in vain and no one could take revenge for them. This was because, in theory, besides the Holy Lord, no one in the demonic path had the qualifications to punish the true demon guards. When the group of black-armored true demon guards walked over, Ziji looked up, envy in his eyes. One of his life's greatest wishes was to join the true demon guards. Unfortunately, after so many years had passed, his hopes had become increasingly remote. As he was thinking about why these true demon guards had come here, he saw them suddenly stop in front of a small 5-story building. This seemed to be a single room in an inn. Could it be that the true demon guards had investigated something and had come here today to take someone away? Ziji's eyes brightened. But what happened next nearly caused his eyes to pop out his head. He saw the group of true demon guards that were filled with overwhelming slaughter intent suddenly restrain their auras. Although they still stood tall and straight, they gave off a docile feeling. Docile? That's right, they were docile. Ziji was dumbfounded. He had a strange feeling as if he were looking at a group of tigers and then a group of white rabbits. Could someone tell him just what was happening? A true demon guard stepped forwards. He cupped his hands together and bowed. May I ask if fellow Taoist Yao Bin is here? In the small building of the single room, the shadows of people were moving about behind the window. Everyone was staring outside with their eyes wide open, not knowing what was going on. Duan San quivered and suddenly thought of something. Yao Bin. This name was familiar. He looked up with difficulty toward the guest room on the 3rd floor. Could it be him? At this time, the door was pushed open from the inside, and Qin Yu stepped out. His eyes calmly fell. I am Yao Bin. What business do you have? The true demon guard cupped his hands together. I have come here on orders. I hope that fellow Taoist, Yao Bin, can come with us and understand some matters. Qin Yu hesitated for a moment and then nodded. All right. He had already expected today's situation. The reason why he had stayed in Heavenly Demon City after leaving the small world was because he was waiting for this moment. If he wanted to join the demonic path, he had to rush through this hurdle. Luckily, he was prepared, so there shouldn't be any mistakes. As he walked downstairs, the group of true demon guards bowed once more and gestured. Qin Yu strode forwards with the true demon guards following behind. Although he hadn't changed at all from yesterday, in the eyes of everyone present, he seemed to be a completely different person. True demon guard. This was a true demon guard, and yet he was so respectful to him. Ziji was dumbfounded. Then he felt a deep sense of joy in his heart. I'm lucky that my little sister stopped me that day. Otherwise, if I really offended this person, I fear I wouldn't even know how I died. Qing's eyes widened. Although she had felt that Qin Yu wasn't an ordinary person the day before yesterday, she never imagined he would have such a great background. For a true demon guard to be so polite to him, this wasn't a courtesy that an ordinary person could obtain. After all, the status of a true demon guard was special. To a certain extent, there were no taboos in their actions. In fact, there was indeed more to this than meets the eye. It would be mentioned in the future, so there was no need to speak too much about it here. After walking for some time, Qin Yu suddenly stopped. He turned and said, I will be back soon. Don't return the room. Stay here for me. Duan Sen was stunned for a moment before he realized that he was being spoken to. His face flushed red, and he was so excited that he couldn't speak. He could only nod. Good heavens, such a great figure is actually speaking to me. Qin Yu smiled. He turned and walked away. Outside Dom Perchin, there was a true demon guard speed car. Qin Yu sat down and leaned back in the soft leather seat, closing his eyes in meditation. Sitting across from him were 2 true demon guards. The 2 of them looked up and down, occasionally revealing looks of surprise. If it weren't for that person from the Zhao family personally endorsing him, it would be hard to believe that this common-looking youth in front of them actually possessed such astonishing strength. The speed car moved forwards quickly. It had clearly been modified by an array formation, so it didn't shake at all. They soon arrived at their destination. Qin Yu stood up and got off. As he looked at the signboard of Heavenly Demon City's City Lord Mansion, his pupils shrank. What a terrifying aura! The current City Lord Mansion was simply an unfathomable abyss. 7 auras shot into the heavens like towering mountains, leaving one in awe. But at this time, what Qin Yu felt the most incredible was the 8th aura. It was incomparably weak, like a candle flame, but it gave off an extremely terrifying feeling, as if just the slightest tremble could turn this world into purgatory. Fellow Taoist Yao Bin, please. The true demon guard led the way. Qin let out a breath. He nodded and followed behind. His steps were steady as he walked into the city lord mansion. Chapter 515. The situation that Qin Yu worried about the most didn't occur. The Calamity Immortal Realm Supreme Elders still had their own statuses. Even if they attached great importance to the unexpected change in the Demon Ascension Gate, they still didn't personally appear to inquire. This was naturally good news for Qin Yu. Even if he was prepared, facing a Calamity Immortal Realm Supreme Elder would inevitably cause him to be extremely nervous. There was no telling if there would be a mistake. The true demon guard stood guard outside the door. Across from them were the two demonic pathmasters who were responsible for questioning Qin Yu today. Their auras were tyrannical. They were both peak blue sea characters. However, the cultivator on the left had a gentle expression. As he saw Qin Yu enter, he nodded in acknowledgement. As for the one on the right, his attitude wasn't friendly at all. His icy cold eyes were like blades, filled with a chilling intent. "Name!" Li Yunqi shouted out loud. Qin Yu frowned. He glanced at him and said, "Yao Bin. Black Demon Sex Yao Bin? That's me." Li Yunqi sneered. Identity confirmed. "Yao Bin, today I will question you on behalf of the demonic path. You must tell us everything you experienced after entering the Demon Ascension Gate's small world. I advise you to tell us the truth. If you are discovered to be hiding something, you won't like the consequences." Sun Shui nodded. "Fellow Taoist Yao Bin, this matter is of great importance. The Calamity Immortals are paying close attention to it, so you must think carefully before you speak. Don't forget anything." Li Yunqi frowned, a bit dissatisfied with Qin Yu's attitude. But the two of them had similar statuses, so he could only snort. Sun Shui faintly smiled, not caring. Qin Yu's thoughts stirred. After several breaths of silence, he slowly said, "On the day the Demon Ascension Gate opened, I entered the small world with fellow Taoists and met fellow Taoist Sun Zifu and the others, and sure enough, as he spoke to hear, Qin Yu saw a bright light flash in Sun Shui's eyes. He seemed to have made some judgments in his mind, and his tone became even calmer. He recounted his experiences in the small world as they were. Of course, most of what Qin Yu said could be substantiated. There were some key points that he used the spring and autumnal style to gloss over in a few sentences. Li Yunqi interrupted Qin Yu several times, asking him to elaborate. But no matter how he thought about it, he couldn't find anything wrong. There were some things that they didn't know about Qin Yu's story and some things that they had verified from other aspects. Now that they compared them, Qin Yu's story was much more believable. 9 truths and 1 falsehood was naturally the hardest to unravel. When Sion Zhao saw that he wasn't a match for the Monster Emperor, he used a secret technique to escape. As for me, I didn't have the slightest confidence in facing the resurrected Monster Emperor, so I also ran away. Qin Yu picked up the teacup in front of him and took a sip, indicating that he had finished speaking. Li Yunqi was flustered and exasperated. "Tell me in detail. After Zhao Qinyuan left, what did you do?" At this critical moment, how could he allow himself to be so perfunctory? Qin Yu set down the teacup. "What does fellow Taoist Zhao want to know? I've already said it very clearly. After Sion Zhao escaped, I didn't dare to stay for long. I followed closely behind and escaped from the small world. Could it be that fellow Taoist Zhao believes that in that sort of situation, I wouldn't be in a hurry to escape and would have the mind to do something else?" Li Yunqi's face was livid. That was not what he wanted to know. Yao Bin seemed to be obedient, but in fact he was so slippery that he didn't get any useful information at all. It was almost certain that Yao Bin was the last person to leave, but who knew what had happened? Zhao Qinyuan had already escaped, so how could Yao Bin possibly contend with him? Taking a deep breath, Li Yunqi coldly said, "Yao Bin, how did you leave the small world?" Qin Yu looked at him, his eyes filled with pity, as if he were looking at an idiot. Li Yunqi slammed the table. "Yao Bin, I'm warning you. You had best be honest and answer my questions. This bastard, just what kind of eyes did he have? He really deserved to be burned to death. Qin Yu's voice turned cold. Fellow Taoist Li, the method I use to escape from the small world is my greatest secret. Li Yunqi sneered. I ask questions on behalf of the demonic path. You must answer all my questions. Qin Yu was silent for several breaths of time. He nodded and sighed. It looks like I have to say it. There are some parts of what I said before that I wasn't too clear on, so I will have to say it again. Li Yunqi's eyes brightened. Hurry up and speak. Brat, are you scared? If you want to be honest now, it's too late. No matter how cooperative you are, how did you leave the small world? Don't even think about skipping over this question. Qin Yu nodded. As I said before, another group of cultivators suddenly fell into the demonic path, and the monster tree puppets crazily attacked them. In addition, the matter of the monster race, Great Emperor resurrecting, was too terrifying. So many people decided to flee. The first person to successfully escape was Dong Hanju. So the rumors were true. Fellow Taoist Dong was born with a bead in his mouth, and this bead can actually summon 7 colors. The reason Dong Hanju was able to escape was because of the power of this bead. Now, I will explain the process in detail. Li Yunqi's face turned green. He shouted, "Shut up!" Cold sweat dripped down his forehead. Dong Hanju was the future star of the Dong family and had an extremely high status in the Dong family. The bead he was born with was his greatest secret. If the information about this bead were to be exposed today because of his inquiry, Li Yunqi clenched his teeth. Let's skip this part and continue. Qin Yu nodded. Next is Su Guzi, Zhou Feng Wang, and Mu Qingwan. I must say that fellow Taoist Su's attainments in array formations are truly unfathomable. He was actually able to lay down a secret array to tear apart space. Unfortunately, the final result was that Su Guzi died, and Zhou Feng Wang and Mu Qingwan borrowed the power of the array to escape. As for the specifics, let me slowly explain it to you. Li Yunqi stood up. His movements were too fast and too fierce. He bumped into the table and nearly overturned it. The teacups fell to the ground with loud, crackling sounds. Qin Yu had an innocent expression. Fellow Taoist Li, what is it? Li Yunqi took a deep breath and then another. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to hold himself back and would jump over and strangle this bastard to death. Even this part can escape. This bastard was absolutely doing this on purpose. Dong Hanju's matter was already tricky enough, but he actually dared to mention Su Guzi's death. Now that the entire Su family had gone crazy, if he asked something he shouldn't ask, then the Zhou family and Mu family wouldn't be easy to provoke. They would absolutely make him suffer the consequences. Qin Yu readily accepted his advice. Good, then continue. When Sion Zhao's dragon spear struck out with a heaven-shaking strike, he truly became the incarnation of a divine dragon, and massive dragon scales appeared on his spear. He was crying, "Motherfucker, you can't play with me like this. I don't want to know anything at all." If the Zhao family knew that Zhao Qinyuan's secrets had been exposed, wouldn't he be torn to pieces? Thinking about it, he feared that even 80 pieces wouldn't be enough. Li Yunqi shuddered and a cold chill ran down his spine. Sun Shui's lips curved up in a smile, and he finally relaxed. It was clear that this Yao Bin was a smart person. That surname, Li had a member of his family die, so he didn't like anyone he saw. And now, it was unknown who he was listening to, but if he wanted to obtain something from him, it seemed that there was no hope. Li Yunqi flew into a rage. Yao Bin, if you want to die, then don't drag us down with you. This matter involves the secrets of everyone's cultivation. So how could it be made public? Qin Yu's complexion was cold. It seems that fellow Taoist Li hasn't drunk too much. Since you know this, why are you still forcing me? Li Yunqi jumped into the pit. His face turned the color of pig liver, but he couldn't say a single word. This was the same as Qin Yu using his own words to ruthlessly slap him in the face. Sun Shui stepped forward to smooth things over. If this surname, Li were to shed all pretense of cordiality, then no one would have any face left. If the lords of the mansion were to learn of this, he would have the impression of being incompetent. Fellow Taoist Yao, please calm down. Fellow Taoist, Li was worried about the small world, so his words were a bit rash. Please don't take it to heart. As cultivators, which one of us doesn't have some secrets? We naturally don't want others to know about this. This is understandable. He paused and continued to say, today's questioning has been very clear. How about we end things here first? What does fellow Taoist Li think? Li Yunyi's complexion darkened. I have no objections. Surname Yao Bastard, I will remember you. We aren't finished yet. Qin Yu stood up and cupped his hands together. If that's the case, then I will bid my farewells first. He turned and left. Li Yunyi flicked his sleeves and left. Just as he was about to leave the city lord mansion, Sun Shi caught up to him. Fellow Taoist Yao, please wait a moment. Qin Yu turned around. Fellow Taoist Sun, is there something you need? Sun Shi was full of smiles. His voice was warm and friendly. I'll be rude and call fellow Taoist Yao little brother. You saved my family's young master, and as your uncle, I am deeply grateful. He was truly grateful. After the small world opened, Sun Zifu, who had buried himself underground, was rescued. After crying and howling for some time, the Sun family soon discovered just how he had survived. Some people hated Qin Yu for meddling in other people's business, but there were also people who were extremely grateful to him. Sun Shi was one of these people. Because he had no children, he regarded this nephew of his, Sun Zifu, as his own son. He always had high hopes for him. Qin Yu was enlightened. So fellow Taoist Sun and Sun Zifu are actually uncle and nephew. Sun Shi smiled. What? You don't want to call me big brother? Qin Yu cupped his hands together. Big brother Sun is too serious. It's just that I and Sun Zifu are of the same generation, so I fear it might be a bit inappropriate. Sun Shi waved his hand. Even if this little brat cultivates for several hundred more years, he still might not have the qualifications to call me little brother. For now on, just call me nephew. With these words, young Master Sun had lowered his seniority. Qin Yu smiled and nodded. Sun Shi lowered his voice. The changes in the small world are too great, and the demonic path is placing great importance on it. But this matter might also have other consequences. Brother Yao, for the next few days, it would be best if you stayed in Heavenly Demon City and didn't casually leave. He straightened himself. I still have to report to the lords, so I won't send you off. You and I will have plenty of opportunities to get closer in the future. He cupped his hands together and bid his farewells. That surname Li was short-sighted, but he wasn't an idiot. If this Yao Bin could obtain such a high evaluation from Zhao Qinyuan, then he definitely wasn't an ordinary person. His future achievements would be limitless. Since the Sun family had a chance to form a relationship with him, he naturally had to manage it well. Perhaps there would be unexpected harvests in the future. The Sun family was rich enough to rival an entire nation, and their strength couldn't be underestimated. But in terms of peak strength, they were just barely passable. Otherwise, why would he cast his net so wide in hopes of harvesting something? Shaking his head, Sun Shi quickened his pace. He gathered his thoughts and began to prepare to report to the lords. Although Li Yunqi didn't like Qin Yu and wished that he couldn't leave the house, facing a calamity immortal realm superpower house, he didn't dare to speak half a word of lies. At most, he would describe Qin Yu's wild and unruly nature. After that, Sun Shi said it again. Basically, he was cleared of suspicion. After receiving the signal, the two bowed, drew back several steps, and left. In the main hall, because space couldn't withstand the fluctuations of strength, it began to distort. This wasn't intentional, but was a natural result of the aura dissipating. A blurry figure slowly said, "With what we have now, there is no way we can find any useful clues from these juniors." Another figure said, "Ever since the Demon Ascension Gate was established, my demonic path has never suffered such a great loss. Of the 11,300 disciples, less than 20% survived. The demonic path's 100 years of cultivation will be destroyed in a single day. We must clearly investigate this matter. Why did the slumbering monster race Great Emperor suddenly wake up?" On the upper left, the white-robed demon attendant suddenly said, "This time, the demonic path's junior elites have suffered serious casualties, but that doesn't mean we haven't gained anything. Today, This Yao Bin is equal to 10,000 people. Even so, the greatest problem is that the ancient tree monster has withered and the small world will soon collapse. This is the demonic path's greatest loss. The atmosphere suddenly froze. If it were only the young disciples that had suffered heavy casualties, then although they were angry, they wouldn't be so solemn. After all, the demon ascension gate was opened once every 100 years, and the demonic path had a deep background. Even if this generation of disciples were destroyed, they could naturally replenish themselves after another 100 years. There wouldn't be too much of an impact. But the price of a small world being destroyed was far too heavy, so heavy that even with their status, they found it hard to bear. This was because a small world represented an endless source of demonic power. It could raise a massive number of demonic path powerhouses. Once it was destroyed, it would be far more difficult for the outstanding demonic path disciples to awaken their bloodlines. The demon attendant lightly said, "Countless years ago, my demonic path's ancestors didn't have a small world, but they were still able to create an unrivaled pressure and establish the transcendent orthodoxy of the demonic path. Now that it has been destroyed, although this is a great loss, from another perspective it might not be a bad thing. In the end, when a cultivator cultivates, they can only rely on themselves. If they are strong enough, why would they need to rely on external objects?" A woman spoke up, her voice young and tender. "Lord Demon Attendant is right. Who cares if the small world is destroyed? Do you think that the prestige of my demonic path today will be affected by this?" She paused for a moment and then continued to say, "There is another problem right now. How will we announce this matter? Right now, the entire land of divinity and demons has gathered at Heavenly Demon City. An accident had occurred at the Demon Ascension Gate's grand ceremony, and the demonic path's young disciples had suffered heavy casualties. This news had already spread out through various channels, but most people didn't know the specifics. Nearly 10,000 disciples had died. Of course, there were heavy casualties, but 2,000 or 3,000 could also be described as such. As long as the demonic path had the heart to suppress this, it wouldn't be difficult to hide the true losses. The reason they did this was because of face. The solemn and transcendent demonic path, one of the two great influences of the land of divinity and demons, had suffered such a great loss without even knowing what had happened. If this matter were to spread out, it was inevitable that they would lose face. The fewer people that died, the less face they would lose. Several great figures present had also thought of this matter, but no one was willing to speak up. Yen Lu had a close relationship with the demon attendant, so it was best for her to speak up now. The grand hall fell silent. The demon attendant lightly said, "My demonic path has always pursued a perfect heart. If we suffer a loss, we suffer a loss. If we forcefully suppress it, do you think we can pretend it didn't happen? We are just deceiving ourselves and others." His eyes were cold, and his majesty seemed to come from above the highest heavens. "The accident that occurred in the small world will be reported to the world. My demonic path will not let this matter go. No matter who it is, where it comes from, what sort of background it is, once this matter is discovered, all of their clans will be executed. We will use the blood of millions to comfort the dead juniors of the demonic path." Slaughter intent rose, incomparably domineering. Yin Lu's eyes instantly blurred. As for being scolded to her face, she didn't care at all. He was truly worthy of being called the Lord Demon Attendant. He hadn't changed at all from the past, and still made one unable to close their legs. Qin Yu left the City Lord Mansion and boarded the True Demon Guard speed car. This time, there was no one following him. Qin Yu relaxed just like when he came, leaning back in the soft seat and closing his eyes. But only he knew what sort of pressure he had withstood when he was questioned. 8 terrifying auras flickered in and out of existence, lingering around him the entire time. Although they didn't personally appear, the great figures still paid him the necessary attention. If it weren't for Qin Yu's preparations and his strong will, he would have already been dripping with sweat. How could he have been able to play around with Li Yunqi? Luckily, his performance should have been good, Otherwise, it would have been impossible for Sun Shui to chase after him. He should have passed this hurdle. As he thought about how Sun Shui had told him not to leave Heavenly Demon City in the near future, Qin Yu faintly smiled. The small world had been sealed off, and the Soul Guard Stone had lost its function. The ranking method of past years was no longer applicable. It seemed that there would be some changes to the demonic path's disciple recruitment this time. Qin Yu believed that his name would inevitably be among them. After returning to Dawn Perch residence, the true demon guards bowed and bid their farewells. Their tone was much more respectful than before. Qin Yu bowed in return and turned to enter the inn. After taking just a few steps, someone greeted him. The shopkeeper's face was as bright as a chrysanthemum. He bowed and apologized, saying that he had eyes but failed to see and had neglected the Lord. He then pulled over Duan San and praised him, saying that from now on he would be the one to specifically serve Lord Yaobin. Qin Yu couldn't help but laugh. He didn't want to be entangled with them any longer. He lightly said, "I'm a bit tired. Don't disturb me." As he spoke, he walked towards the rear courtyard. Duan San eagerly followed, his face flushed red with excitement. The servants of Dawn Perch residence all had eyes as wide as rabbits. To be able to serve such a powerhouse was something to be proud of. This was seniority. After experiencing such an incident, as long as Duan San didn't make any mistakes, he would definitely be placed in an important position. And most importantly, if he served Lord Yaobin well and managed to form a relationship with him, the benefits would simply be unimaginable. The shopkeeper sneered and turned to leave, completely ignoring the pleading eyes of these people, who told them to not have Duan San's eyesight and try to curry favor with him from the start. The servant responsible for guiding the guests in the rear courtyard was now filled with regret. As he thought of Duan San's depressed face when he left, he couldn't help but curse inwardly. This fellow, he really knew how to act. Did he have to spend a great deal of effort to prevent himself from laughing out loud? That bastard. That bastard Duan personally opened the door. Of course, it was no longer Qin Yu's single room, but the best courtyard of Dawn Perch residence. After the shopkeeper explained the situation, the people who lived here moved out without a word. Qin Yu wasn't surprised. He nodded and walked in, flicking his sleeves and closing the courtyard door. Duan San was so happy that he nearly snot came out of his nose. Lord Yaobin nodded to me. Cough, cough. I can't be arrogant. I have to continue to work hard and obtain more of the Lord's approval. Perhaps this might be the chance for him, Duan San to change his destiny. As for that snobbish daughter of old second son's family next door, she was dressed in crude clothes, had a large face, a thick waist, and a small chest, and yet she still thought that she was the most arrogant person in the world. She should just go and do whatever she wanted. Chapter 516. In the lands of the extreme north, snow fell all year round, and it was bitterly cold. It was still that roughly hewn cave. But today, there were even more people here. Whether it was men or women, they wrapped themselves up like a thick rice dumpling to resist the increasingly strong black ice energy. They knelt in the bone-chilling rocks, their eyes solemn and respectful. "Lord Sage, I ask you to reconsider." The man who spoke was tall and large. His palms were pressed against the ground, and his joints bulged out. His aura was fierce and firm. The white-robed sage didn't seem to feel the chill of the outside world. He slowly shook his head, a faint smile on his lips. "I've worked hard to set it up for so many years. Now that it has been successfully opened, there is no reason to give up halfway. To be able to use this ruined body of mine to exchange for a new life for my race, I am very happy." The tall man wanted to say something else, but was stopped by the sage. The sage slowly swept his eyes around. "Look, you are all the most outstanding people of my race, but even you have no choice but to wear thick furs to resist the cold. What about your people, your livestock? We are a group of people abandoned by the world. If we don't want to be exterminated, we can only seek our own path to survival. Go, return to the side of your people who need you. Help them survive and wait for the chance to change the fate of my race. That day won't be too far away." Everyone touched their foreheads to the ground. "We will follow your will." We wish you good health." They turned and left one after another. Many people began to shed tears, because by the time the Lord Sage's message arrived, he should have already left. This was a kindness to their race. All monster tribes would forever engrave it in their hearts. The sage softly said, "Beachy, stay here." The tall man respectfully bowed and stood to the side with his head lowered. After everyone left, there were only 2 people left in the cave. It was completely empty. The sage had a blank look in his eyes. It was unknown what he was thinking, but he didn't speak for a time. Beachy hesitated for a moment. He respectfully said, "Lord Sage, are you worried about the future of our race?" The sage regained his composure. He smiled apologetically and shook his head. "No, I've already made my preparations, and you are outstanding enough. I believe that you can become an outstanding king and lead the monster race to rise. Today, I want to tell you something else. In the demonic path, there is an extremely outstanding youth. His existence is likely to become a great hidden danger for the monster race. So, after my race returns to our ancestral land, you must find him and kill him." Beachy frowned. "Are you speaking of Zhao Qinyuan? He is indeed a great threat. I swear that I will kill him at all costs." Sage shook his head. "It wasn't him. Zhao Qinyuan must be killed, but the person I'm talking about is even more important." He raised his hand and pointed out. A speck of light appeared, swaying like a snowflake. It fused into Beachy's forehead. "Remember this person. We must find him." Beachy's heart turned cold. He cupped his fist together and said, "Lord Sage, do not worry. I will definitely kill him." It was actually an unfamiliar face. When did such a proud son of heaven appear in the path of devils? But since it was an order from the sage, he only needed to remember it and follow it. Sage nodded. "Go back, reorganize the army, and train up the fiercest, vicious beasts. When my monster race reappears in the world, you will be the sharpest sword in our hands." Beachy knelt down and kowtowed heavily. "Please take care." He stood up and strode away. Sage watched him leave, a bit of hesitation in his eyes. He knew that he should immediately find Qinyu and kill him. But the storm in the Demon Ascension Gate's small world had yet to calm down. If he were to attack now, it was likely he would arouse the suspicions of the demonic path and affect his entire plan. Thus, after thinking it over, the sage finally gave up on attacking. "Even if you are outstanding enough and have obtained many great strokes of good fortune, you are still too young. Even if I die, I won't give you enough time to grow and harm my race. So, you will definitely die. The only difference is whether it is sooner or later. You must die." A calm and deep voice echoed through the cave, producing echoes as if it were some powerful prophecy. "Heavenly Demon City." Qin Yu was startled awake from his cultivation. In that moment, just now, a great fear rose in his heart, as if he had been locked onto by a vicious beast in a rainforest. But now, when he tried to sense it again, there was no such feeling. It was like everything just now had been an illusion. Qin Yu's complexion darkened. He frowned for a long time and took a deep breath to suppress his tumbling thoughts. He closed his eyes and tried to cultivate again, but he couldn't calm his heart no matter what. Unknown dangers always caused one to be more anxious. After several failed attempts to enter meditation, Qin Yu simply stood up. He pushed open the training room's stone door and walked into the courtyard. This was the best courtyard of Dawn Perch Inn, and it naturally lived up to its reputation. The courtyard was large, and the scenery was beautiful. Qin Yu quietly looked around for a moment. He felt the heavy feeling in his chest lighten a little. He looked up at the sky, opened the courtyard door, and walked towards the inn's front yard. This was already the 3rd day after he left the City Lord Mansion. Everything had been calm and peaceful, but Qin Yu knew that the demonic path was surely investigating what happened in the small world with all their strength. When he went out this time, he also had the intention of finding out more information. After all, the situation in the small world had been far too strange. It was like there was an invisible hand manipulating everyone from start to finish. Qin Yu thought of that great hand that pressed down from the heavens. Its might was limitless and terrifying. If it weren't for the demon head appearing in the skies at the critical moment and forcing it back, It would have been difficult for him to stand here. Duan San ran over like a gust of wind. His bent waist was so large that it left one worried, as if he might snap at any moment. "Lord Yaobin, what do you need?" Qin Yu lightly said. "Find a quiet seat and bring some light dishes. Also, make sure the wine is good." Duan San smiled. "Lord Yaobin, rest assured that our snowflake wine is famous far and wide. The shopkeeper has a 100-year-old jar in his collection. I will immediately bring it over for you. My lord, please come this way. We will go to the 3rd floor." Because Duan San was far too enthusiastic, Qin Yu received a great deal of attention along the way. Luckily, when the true demon guard had invited people, many people had been scared away, so there weren't many people that saw Qin Yu. Thus, most of them only glanced at him out of curiosity. They thought he was some rich playboy with a great background and didn't want to provoke trouble, so they all looked away. The 3rd floor was close to Bright Dawn Lake. At this time, a gentle breeze was blowing, bringing with it a bit of moisture. Looking down, one could clearly see young men and women playing on the lakeside. There was a young girl in a swimsuit lying on a chair. At first glance, all of her beauty was reflected in her eyes. It was truly wonderful. Even if she didn't have any dark thoughts, just looking at her was enough to make one happy. Qin Yu nodded and sat down. As Duan San saw the smile on his face, he felt his spirits rise 100 times. "My lord, please wait a moment. I will immediately go and prepare." Perhaps this was the fastest speed in Dawn Perch Restaurant's history. Not long after Qin Yu sat down, 12 plates of hot and cold fruits were brought in. The shopkeeper also personally brought in a jar of wine. Just by looking at the warm color of the wine jar, one could tell it was aged. When it was opened, the fragrance of wine wafted out. Qin Yu drank the wine and ate the delicacies carefully prepared in the kitchen. Without batting an eyelid, he heard the conversations of several people at a table not too far away. Yesterday, the demonic path had announced to the world what happened in the small world. They didn't conceal anything at all, and the casualties were disastrous. This caused the entire land of divinity and demons to shake. Almost all large influences immediately issued statements of condolences to the demonic path disciples that had died and expressed sympathy for the demonic path. At the same time, they strongly condemned these acts of terrorism that stirred up chaos in the world. Soon, the demonic path issued a second announcement. They would not hesitate to pay any price to find the person who killed the demonic path disciples. No matter who it was, as long as they knew something and didn't report it, they would be punished the same as the murderer, and their entire family would be exterminated. As the several people at the table spoke of this announcement filled with monstrous killing intent, their faces were filled with pride. The only one that dared to publicly threaten the entire world and forcefully announce the extermination of their entire family was their demonic path. Qin Yu couldn't help but reveal a look of praise. He wondered who it was that made such a public announcement to the world, revealing the tyrannical strength of the demonic path as well as a powerful will. Thinking about it, it should be some great figure that soared above the highest heavens, exterminating their entire family, was truly fierce and overbearing. He lifted a hand and drained his cup. The Sure family brother and sister were also on the 3rd floor, but they were too far away, so Qin Yu didn't notice them. "Little sister, let's go. Let's try our luck. Perhaps there will be a chance." Sure Ziji clenched his teeth. "If we wait any longer, we will only be sitting ducks." Sure Qingqing's heart skipped a beat. She had always been overcautious, but she never imagined that their Sure family would be forced into a desperate situation. If they didn't think of a way to save themselves, they would really be ruined. At this time, she naturally had to try any chance she could. She took a deep breath and nodded. "Big brother is right. We cannot wait any longer." Sure Ziji stood up. "Let's go now." The two of them stood up. But as luck would have it, before they arrived, two figures had already arrived at the window overlooking the lake. They were also a man and a woman. Sure Qingqing's eyes flashed with annoyance. This Yao Bin was an elusive person. If she couldn't speak with him today, she didn't know when she would see him again. And what the Sure family lacked the most right now was time. It was all her fault for being too conflicted just now. Otherwise, how could someone else have rushed ahead of her? Sure, Ziji's complexion paled. He strode forwards. The experiences of these past 2 days had caused the proud and arrogant young master of an aristocratic family to be filled with rage. Suddenly, the woman in front of him turned around. Sure, Ziji's eyes instantly blurred, and he drooled. In his eyes, this woman's face was blurry, but there was an indescribable beauty to her. She was simply the most perfect woman in his fantasies. Her eyes were filled with warmth and tenderness. His breathing deepened and his heartbeat quickened. Big brother. Sure, Qingqing was shocked. She looked at him dripping with sweat, his face flushed red, his breathing labored, and his appearance of infatuation. She hurriedly pulled him back. But this pull wasn't able to rouse Sure Ziji. Sure, Qingqing didn't care about her face. She picked up a cup of cold tea from the table and splashed it onto his face. The red-faced young master, Sure, suddenly sobered up. He looked at his little sister's anxious expression as well as the teacup in her hand that hadn't been set down yet. His heart trembled and a cold chill surged through him. At the same time, his legs weakened and he swayed. Sure, Qingqing said, "Big brother, what's wrong?" Sure, Ziji's eyes were filled with fear. He looked at the 2 people in front of him. "It's nothing. Let's return to our room first." His voice was hoarse. "Okay." Sure, Qingqing wasn't stupid. She had already realized something was wrong. She quickly called over the juniors of her family and supported Sure Ziji away. Qingyu looked at the man sitting across from him. This man was incomparably handsome and had a calm bearing. He looked to be in his 30s, and his eyes were warm and clear, filled with the vicissitudes of life. Next to him was a beautiful woman who exuded a mature aura. Her waist was slender and her chest was straight. Her figure was graceful, like a ripe peach that seemed as if a single touch would cause water to flow out. The man was handsome and the woman was charming. No matter how one looked at it, this was a couple that made one envious. But at this time, all Qingyu felt in his heart was nervousness. No, it was more accurate to say that he was extremely nervous. Whether it was the purple moon or the cosmic sea crossbell, both of them had endowed Qingyu with an extremely keen sensing ability. Moreover, after activating a portion of his great Tao body, he could almost see the invisible rules of the world. The man and woman in front of him seemed ordinary, but in Qinyu's eyes, the rules around them twisted, forming a complete chaos. It was like they were walking black holes. Qingyu didn't doubt that either man or woman had the terrifying strength to easily crush him. Calamity, immortal realm, and in Heavenly Demon City. In the current situation, the only Calamity immortals that dared to appear in public were super powerhouses of the demonic path. Could it be that what he did in the small world had already been exposed? But if it was exposed, Qingyu didn't believe that they would wait 3 days before returning. This was because the temptation of demon blood crystals was something that not even a Calamity immortal could resist. Forcefully maintaining his composure, Qingyu displayed 120% of his strength. He frowned, a bit puzzled. He hesitantly asked, "Is there something you two need?" The white-clothed man had a light expression. He smiled. "Meeting here is fate. Won't you invite us to drink a cup of wine?" Qingyu suddenly said, "You two must have smelled the fragrance of wine. This snowflake wine is indeed rich and mellow. I was just feeling lonely drinking it alone, so you two came at just the right time." He lifted his hand. Duan San'er, who had already noticed him, ran over. "My lord, what are your orders?" Qingyu said. "Add 2 more sets of chopsticks." The food was soon delivered. Qingyu personally poured wine cups. He smiled and said, "Please." Duan San'er drew to the side. He couldn't help but roll his eyes. Just who were these 2 people? How arrogant. Duan San'er viewed Qingyu as a benefactor that could change his destiny. He instinctively didn't want Qingyu to suffer any losses, even if it was something as trivial as this. But that woman was truly beautiful. With just a single glance, he almost had a shameful hard time. The white-clothed man picked up a wine cup and sniffed it. He nodded, "It's really good." He lifted a hand and drank it. He closed his eyes, as if savoring the aftertaste. The woman beside him suddenly said, Yao Bin, how much of what happened in the small world did you hide? Qin Yu's complexion changed. He asked, Who are you two? The woman lightly said, You only need to answer. Qin Yu took a deep breath. His complexion darkened, as if he would erupt at any moment. At this time, the white-clothed man opened his eyes. We were just curious and asked, If little friend doesn't want to answer, then don't say anything. Qin Yu's complexion was cloudy and uncertain. After several breaths of time, he sighed. Whatever. Since I already have my heart set on the demonic path, even if I don't say anything today, do you think I can always avoid it? He faced the two people. It's true that I hid something, but everyone has secrets they don't want others to know. I can only say that I have already said everything I know about the key matters. The white-clothed man smiled. He placed a wine cup on the table. With a light cracking sound, the world around Qin Yu instantly shook. His heart began to beat uncontrollably. It pushed his blood through his blood vessels and raced through his body at high speeds, emitting a deep rumbling sound. Across from him, the white-clothed man's eyes brightened for a moment before he composed himself. He glanced at Qin Yu and stood up. Because of the sudden change in the small world, there have been serious casualties. The demonic path has decided to absorb all the cultivators that managed to leave the small world alive. So, congratulations, little friend. You will soon be able to fulfill your wish and become a member of the demonic path. He turned and walked out. The beautiful woman who exuded a seductive aura swept her eyes over Qin Yu, a bit surprised. Then, she followed behind the white-clothed man. It was only when they reached the ground floor that Qin Yu regained his composure. He gradually regained control of his body, and his heartbeat returned to normal. He stood up and walked to the opposite side of the third floor. When he looked down, he could no longer see the figure of the man and woman. Qin Yu's complexion was cloudy and uncertain. He muttered, Just who are they? The white-clothed Lord Demon Envoy had a calm expression as he walked along the long willow embankment of Bright Dawn Lake. There were many people coming and going, but not a single one of them could see him, much less touch him. Often, when there was still some distance between them, they would be pushed away. And what was strange was that from start to finish, no one noticed him at all. Yin Lu's footsteps were light as she followed behind him. From time to time, she would look up at his back. Her eyes were filled with tenderness and longing, without the slightest bit of the dignified bearing of a calamity immortal. Finally, the Lord Demon Envoy stopped. He faced Bright Dawn Lake, his eyes calm and tranquil. Yin Lu pulled back her hair. Do you value this young man very much? The Demon Envoy lightly said. He has enough qualifications for me to value him. Yin Lu curled her lips. Let's not talk about his strength first, but he is quite slippery. The Demon Envoy said. In today's situation, if it were anyone else, they would have to pretend that they didn't know our identities. He paused for a moment and continued to say, having a brain is always better than having no brain. At least in this dangerous world, you can live longer. Yin Lu's eyes sparkled. Do you really think highly of him? The Demon Envoy shook his head. I only have a suspicion. His eyes suddenly sharpened. For all these years, this junior hasn't had the slightest bit of fame spread out. But one day he soared into the world and became a peerless, proud son of heaven of the demonic path. How could there be so many Zhao Qinyuans in this world? So, this in itself makes one suspect him. Yin Lu revealed a thoughtful expression. You are saying that Yao Bin might be related to what happened in the small world? The Demon Envoy stepped forwards. I have no evidence, and this is only my guess. But I will suppress him for a period of time. If there is a problem, then it will naturally be exposed. If there isn't, then consider this a tempering experience for him, and I will compensate him in the future. The Demon Envoy turned his back to Yin Lu and avoided her gaze. A trace of guilt flashed in his eyes. In truth, he wasn't good at lying, especially when he was deceiving a woman who had loved him for so many years. But he couldn't allow any mistakes to occur in this matter. He had to be careful. As the revered Demon Envoy of the Holy Palace, he had suddenly led the true demon guards to heavenly Demon City. This had already aroused the attention of all sides, and every move he made would be interpreted. But at this time, besides a bit of guilt, the demon envoy was also filled with excitement and joy. In fact, he even had to work extremely hard to maintain his calm. After waiting for countless years, this day had finally arrived. He would hide his thoughts and secretly pay attention to Qin Yu's growth until one day he had enough responsibility. Chapter 517. The Sure family brother and sister received an urgent message from their home. Although they were worried, their faces lit up with joy. This was because the message said that a noble family of the demonic path had returned to their fiefdom, and the Sure family had taken this chance to seek refuge with them. After some consideration, the other party had agreed to accept them. This proved that the Sure family was no longer a rootless duckweed. Now that they had their own backing, it wasn't as easy as others to move against them. The meaning of their father's message was for them to immediately return home so that they wouldn't fly into a rage out of shame and be schemed against by others outside. The Sure family brother and sister were overjoyed. There was no need to say anything more. They immediately ordered the cultivators at home to pack up and leave. Duan-san watched as the group of people happily left. Yesterday, these people had been frowning and distressed, but now they were so happy. He couldn't understand what was going on. It was as if he didn't understand why he had suddenly come into conflict with a guest. He clearly hadn't cursed anyone at all. He opened his mouth to speak, but the guest across from him didn't give him a chance to explain. With a kick to the chest, Duan-san felt his chest tighten, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His complexion paled, and he was barely breathing. "You disgraceful thing. Don't think that just because you've latched onto my thigh that you can be arrogant in front of me. Today I'll let you know why flowers are so red." Qi Yunshu was dressed in silk robes and a jade belt, his aura overflowing with arrogance. The shopkeeper was sweating profusely. He bowed and smiled. "Young Master Qi, please be magnanimous and don't lower yourself to the level of this dirty trash. You disgraceful thing. You actually dare to be so rude to young Master Qi. See if I don't skin you alive later. Hurry up and scram." Qi Yunshu coldly sneered. "Hold on. I'm in a bad mood today, so I want to make fun of him. You don't need to worry about this matter, otherwise don't blame me for not giving you face." The shopkeeper's smile stiffened. He wanted to say something more, but under Qi Yunshu's icy cold gaze, he swallowed his words. As the head shopkeeper of Don Perch Restaurant, he could be considered a top character. There was no need for him to be so cowardly, but as luck would have it, the Qi family was one of the hidden masters of Don Perch Restaurant. He was someone who worked for others, so how could he dare to act tough in front of his master? He couldn't bear to look at Duan-san. He sighed and drew back. Qi Yunshu's face lit up. He coldly sneered and waved his hand. "What are you all standing around for? Bring this brat over. This young master wants to know who gave him the courage to do this." A group of burly guards rushed up and started punching and kicking Duan-san. Although these people held back, Duan-san's face was still bruised and swollen, and his whole body softened into a puddle of mud. By the time he was pulled over, he had already fainted. "Pa!" A cloud of cold air smashed into his face, instantly freezing the skin on his face. A stabbing pain pierced straight into his heart, and Duan-san woke up with a pitiful scream. As he opened his mouth and pulled on his facial muscles, the frozen skin quickly burst open, revealing slender cracks that quickly flowed out. Qi Yunshu frowned in disgust. He took out a jade ruler and lifted Duan-san's chin. "Brat, tell us who your backer is. Let's see if they can shake us. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't be able to leave today." Duan-san was startled. From these words, he could hear a ruthless and bloodthirsty tone. If he didn't give a satisfactory answer, these people would really kill him. Of course, in order to maintain basic order, these people would be punished afterwards. But at most they would be fined some spirit stones. As for killing someone, there was no need to think about it. Young master, what do you want to know?" His mouth was leaking air, and most of his teeth had fallen out. As he thought about how he had been so high-spirited just now, Duan-san almost cried. Qi Yunshu waved his hand, and the jade ruler emitted a loud, cracking sound. Duan San-er's bruised cheeks suddenly swelled up, and 2 more teeth flew out. That's not the right answer. Think carefully about what I asked. Duan San-er's head was spinning. There were layers upon layers of people in front of him, but as he heard these words, his heart still shrank. Qi Yinshu and the others had deliberately stirred up trouble today. They naturally didn't have any intention of making things difficult for him, and Duan San-er was well aware of this. He didn't have the qualifications to do so. Yes, even if someone wanted to make things difficult for him, that still depended on whether or not he had the qualifications. Since they didn't want to make things difficult for him, then as he thought about what Qi Yinshu was asking him, Duan San-er shivered. He already guessed the only possibility. These people had come for Lord Yaobin. To put it more elegantly, this was called a fire at the city gates, bringing disaster to the fish in the moat. To put it more crudely, this was being unjustly attacked. If he said Yaobin's name, then he shouldn't have anything to do with it. But did he really dare to say it? Yaobin was someone that even the true demon guards had politely asked to leave. If he angered him, then he could simply move a finger and he would be beyond redemption. Moreover, he might even implicate his little sister. If he didn't say it, then at most he would be the only one who would suffer. He might not really die. Duan San-er wasn't stupid. He knew how to calculate this debt. Young Master Qi, it was all because I had eyes but failed to see that I offended you. It has nothing to do with anyone else. I ask young Master Qi to be magnanimous and spare my rotten life. Qi Yinshu slapped his hand down again. Both sides of his mouth swelled up. Brat, I'll ask you one last time. Will you speak or not? This time he was truly angered. He had been entrusted by someone to come here, not to show off his power and prestige. He had already made a promise to the others. If he didn't obtain anything, then that would be the same as picking up a stone and smashing it on his own foot. Duan San-er felt as if his bones were cracking. The pain was so intense that his vision darkened. He forcefully shook his head, but he couldn't speak. Qi Yinshu was enraged. Good, very good. Since you want to die, then I will fulfill your wish. Beat him to death, and if anything happens, I will take responsibility. Duan San-er closed his eyes, but the expected storm of blows didn't arrive. Instead, there was the sound of several heavy objects falling to the ground. Then, pained groans entered his ears. Duan San-er opened his eyes and saw a black-robed figure in front of him. He choked with sobs and struggled to kneel on the ground, kowtowing. Qi Yinshu's voice was calm. There's nothing else for you to do. Leave. Qi Yinshu was startled. He was immediately overjoyed. Who are you? This brat had actually jumped in here himself. This was truly a case of wearing out iron shoes in search of nothing. Qi Yinshu had no expression. Screw off. He was disinclined to bother with this sort of thing that couldn't be brought to the surface. But just who was it that had deliberately set him up today? Things weren't simple at all. Qi Yinshu was enraged. He clenched his teeth. You bastard! Who do you think you are that you dare to be so rude to me? Men, capture him for me. The ones who were truly here to capture him weren't some useless people on the ground, but true masters, his father's bodyguards. In order to mobilize these people, Qi Yinshu had spent a great deal of time and effort. He had paid a great price to have his family relent. But as long as he could accomplish this, everything was worth it. Whoosh, whoosh, 3 figures howled forwards, all of them holding sabers in their hands. Their faces were firm and determined. Qi Yinshu lifted a hand and pointed. It's him. In the next moment, 3 radiant saber lights howled forwards like waterfalls falling from the highest heavens. Just looking at them was enough to shake one's soul. What a strong saber intent. This was a true killing saber. It was unknown just how many lives had been cut down to condense such a concentrated killing intent. Moreover, the strongest thing was that although these 3 saber lights weren't one, they came from the same source. It was as if they had cultivated the same saber technique, so when they slashed down, they complemented each other. 3 sabers were one saber, coming straight at them. Qi Yinshu's eyes flashed, a bit of surprise in them. 3 early blue sea cultivators could actually erupt with killing power comparable to a revered level master when they joined forces. However, this was only enough to surprise him. As for worrying, that wasn't necessary at all. He lifted a hand and pressed forwards. The radiant saber lights seemed to crash into an invisible mountain, trembling and collapsing. The 3 saber-wielding people revealed shocked expressions. They nearly couldn't hold onto their weapons. With stuffy coughs, they were forced backwards, each step causing the ground to crack. After several steps, the 3 of them were barely able to stop themselves. Their blood tumbled, and the webbing between their thumb and forefinger had been split open by the saber hilt, causing blood to constantly drip down. As they looked at Chinyu, their eyes were filled with awe and shock. This was because they knew that this person could easily crush their attacks. If he wanted to kill them, it wouldn't be difficult at all. One of the guards cupped his hands together. "Thank you for showing mercy." He turned and said, "Young master, it's time for us to leave." To have such strength at such a young age, he definitely wasn't a good opponent to provoke. Seeing that Chinyu didn't have any intention of dealing a heavy blow, it was best to leave first. Chi Yin-shu was stunned. He never thought that these guards that his father always boasted about as being incomparably fierce were actually so useless. With just a single saber strike, they had been forced back by someone, and each of them had been injured. This was too shameful. His face flushed red. He stomped his feet and cursed. "Trash. All of you are trash." He pointed a finger at Chinyu. "You bastard. You know who I am, and yet you dare to touch my people." Chinyu had a calm expression. "I don't know who you are, and I have no interest in you. I'm only reminding you not to provoke me again." The complexions of the 3 guards changed. From this calm voice, they could feel a bit of blood. They said, "Young master, if you don't leave now, we will report today's events truthfully to the old master." Chi Yunshu's complexion paled. He turned and walked away. The 3 guards relaxed. They cupped their hands together towards Chinyu and quickly followed behind. Just as Chi Yunshu was about to leave, he suddenly stopped and coldly glared at Duan-san. Nothing had gone smoothly today, and it was all because of this brat. Originally saying that he would make fun of him was only an excuse, but now he really was a punching bag. "Duan-san, or is it? I heard you have a little sister, and she looks quite good." Duan-san stiffened, fear in his eyes. Chi Yunshu turned his head and coldly sneered. "There will always be a time when she isn't around, right? At that time, just watch as I play with them to death." Chinyu frowned. His silent appearance caused Chi Yunshu to feel much better. He couldn't help but laugh. This was the style that a young master should have. Wherever he lost face, he would take it back from there. Humph humph. Those that dared to oppose him would never have a good ending. Chinyu let out a breath, a bit of helplessness on his face. Why is it that there are always people who vividly interpret the words "the ignorant have no fear"? The complexions of the 3 guards changed. They turned and raised their sabers. Although they were angry at Chi Yunshu for acting so recklessly, they couldn't watch helplessly as something happened to him. But this time, Chinyu didn't give them a chance to use their sabers. A gust of wind blew past them, and the 3 guards were sent flying backwards, blood spraying out from their noses and mouths. Chapter 518. Dawn Perch Restaurant was deathly silent. The shopkeeper's legs trembled and his face was ashen. He never thought that a minor matter would develop into such a situation. He opened his mouth, wanted to say that he should let go of young Master Chief first, and that anything could be discussed. But he was suppressed by Chinyu's aura and didn't dare to make a single sound. Chinyu stared at the ruthless Chi Yunshu, his eyes indifferent. He had no thoughts of inquiring about any information from him. This sort of brainless young master was clearly someone else's pawn. Even if he continued to investigate, he wouldn't be able to obtain any results. Chinyu suddenly felt very irritated. He had dealt with the Black Demon sect, tempered himself in a small world, rushed into the City Lord Mansion, and even been shocked by 2 mysterious calamity immortals a few days ago. It wasn't easy for him to reach where he was today. He was just about to smoothly enter the demonic path and achieve the crucial step of his revenge, So why did he have to stir up trouble? Couldn't he just be honest and live in harmony with each other? The pupils of the three guards shrank. They could feel the cold aura coming from Qin Yu's body. He really did have killing intent. Sir, don't be impulsive. Today's matter is all my family's young master's fault. If you can be magnanimous, our Qi family will be eternally grateful. A guard hurriedly said. Qi Yinshu didn't believe that Qin Yu would really dare to move against him. He had always been a lawless person, thinking that he was number 3 in this world. Brat, you are dead. I guarantee you that you will die a miserable death. Even though his neck was being grabbed and it was incomparably difficult for him to speak, young Master Qi still spat out these words. His eyes were filled with even more hatred and malice. Qin Yu suddenly smiled. It was as if he had suddenly found an important reason to smoothly make a decision. Let go of junior apprentice Brother Qi. A cold and gloomy voice sounded out. A young cultivator with a slightly blue complexion appeared on the scene. Qi Yinshu was overjoyed. Senior apprentice Brother Ma. His eyes were filled with excitement. Hurry and save me. Kill him. The three guards' complexions darkened. They were worried about their young master's intelligence when he wasn't online. You were still in someone else's hands, so why are you shouting so arrogantly? Aren't you afraid that he will shake your hand and snap your neck? Ma Yunsong had a calm demeanor, and he had the demeanor of a great master. He calmly nodded and said, Junior apprentice brother, rest assured. Since I am here, I won't allow anyone to touch you. He was overjoyed. As he spoke, he had finished his preparations. His cold eyes fell on Qin Yu, a sharp light flashing in them. During this period of time, the sect was striving for the support of the Qi family. If he could save Qi Yinshu, then that would absolutely be a great merit. Brat, thank you for giving me this opportunity. A sound wave that couldn't be heard by the human ear suddenly exploded in the air. Many people's eyes instantly went blank, and their consciousness fell into darkness. Although this darkness only lasted for an extremely short period of time before disappearing, it still caused the people in the inn to reveal expressions of horror. Curtain of darkness. A guest shouted in a low voice, instantly igniting the crowd. An old man who was watching the excitement had his calm expression wiped away, replaced with a grave expression. At such a young age, he actually managed to cultivate the curtain of darkness, the soul-burying sect's guardian divine ability. It is truly inconceivable. No wonder he's so confident. He's a young expert from the soul burial sect. It is rumored that when one cultivates the canopy of the dark heavens to a high level, one can cover 1 trillion living beings with a single thought, causing their souls to sink into eternal darkness. They will be cut off from the outside world and become a living dead that has lost its consciousness. You and I were only affected by the shock waves, so we can recover in a short period of time. If we were to face it head-on, I fear we would have to spend the rest of our lives in bed. Everyone sighed with emotion. Whispers spread into his ears, and in addition to the awe and reverence in everyone's eyes, Ma Tsongyun straightened his back even more. His expression was indifferent, but there was also a bit of pity and helplessness, as if he were trying to act cool. Why did you have to make me do it? Everyone looked at him. As expected, he came from a famous sect and didn't rely on his strength to act recklessly. Even if he had a reason for what happened today, they still couldn't bear it. The eyes of many young women began to shine. It seemed that as long as little Ma was willing, he could enjoy a free warm bed service tonight, until a cultivator hesitantly said, It seems that young Master Qi is still being held? The surroundings fell silent. Ma Tsongyun was forced to leave the environment he was enjoying. He looked at the person who spoke with dissatisfaction. His curtain of darkness had reached small success. As long as he was struck, there was no way he could break free. What was with this fellow's eyes? He really hadn't let go. Could it be his mortal body's instinct? Yes, that must be it. Ma Tsongyun coughed. Junior apprentice Brother Qi, you can free yourself now. Qi Yinshu's face turned purple. He cursed inwardly. You bastard, come and try. My hand is like cast iron. I can't move at all. Ma Tsongyun felt that something was wrong. He took a deep breath and was about to step forwards when a calm voice echoed out from behind him. Junior apprentice nephew Ma, come back. You are not this little friend's match. His robe was half black and half white, his hair was half white, and his shoes were one black and one white. Although his attire was strange, when one looked at him, one's heart would naturally feel at peace. It was as if they were looking at someone close to them. At this time, he faintly smiled, his voice gentle and light. Little friend, how about letting him go first? Chinyu remained silent. His smile didn't change. Today was only a misunderstanding. Let him go and explain things. What did you say? Chinyu interrupted him. Taoist Black-White paused for a moment. I said that as long as you let him go, I can explain. He was interrupted again. Previous sentence. Taoist Black-White's smile became even warmer. I asked you to let him go. Chinyu nodded. I'm sorry, I was a bit distracted just now, so I didn't hear you clearly. His next words were like a slap to the face. Why? He was apologizing at first, and then suddenly changing the topic. Was this really okay? Taoist Black-White thought that he had a good recuperation, but he was so angry that blue veins popped out from the corners of his eyes. If it weren't for his status, he would have already cursed it out loud. He winked at Chi-Yun-Shu, but the normally clever apprentice nephew Ma had been struck so hard that he had lost his soul. He simply didn't see anything. His mind was filled with only one thought. He's fine, he's fine, he's fine. How could he be fine? Taoist Black-White cursed him for being trash in his heart. Then, he could only step forward. Little friend, do you know that you should forgive and forget? There will always be people in this world that you cannot afford to provoke. The Chi family's young master has a precious status. If something happens to him, you won't be able to leave Heavenly Demon City. Do you really want to take this step? Chi-Yun-Shu's brain was lacking oxygen, and he was seeing stars. But he still insisted on his right to speak. Elder Black-White, don't waste words with him. Kill him. The three guards had dark lines on their foreheads once more. They discovered that the way everyone looked at their young master had turned into one of pity and concern for a mentally handicapped child. This level of intelligence, Taoist Black-White angrily cursed in his heart. If I had confidence I could kill him without injuring you, why would I need a brat like you to blabber here? Ma Tsungyan's curtain of darkness had already reached a certain degree of maturity. After this person received it, he didn't show any reaction. Either his soul was tyrannical or he had a treasure on his body. This wasn't easy to deal with. The key point was that they had already stepped forward today, so they had to deal with this matter. Otherwise, let alone being on good terms with the Chi family, both sides would definitely fall out. As Taoist Black-White was distressed, Chinyu suddenly said, I will give you one more chance. As long as you can subdue me like apprentice nephew Black-White, I will cut my hands and let him go. Taoist Black-White couldn't be bothered with this irritating way of addressing him. He happily said, Really? Chinyu nodded. Of course. Good. I will also display my curtain of darkness. I ask for your guidance. The words indicated that in his heart, he already considered Chinyu a cultivator on the same level. Since everyone was on the same level, it was reasonable for him to attack with his full strength. One couldn't help but admit that an old fox was indeed an old fox. With just a few words, he was able to play all sorts of tricks. The people of Dawn Perch residence all had strange complexions. This was because Chinyu's decision gave off the feeling that he wanted to take this chance to step down from the stage and release Black-White. This was completely different from his previous style. Wasn't he supposed to be cold and indifferent, unafraid of power? Just now he had a face that said, Don't think I don't dare to kill you, but now he was acting like this. TSK. He really was shameless. Everyone looked at him with eyes full of contempt. As for how to step down, wasn't that simple? As long as Taoist Black-White attacked, he could take advantage of the chance to shake him a few times and then spit out a few mouthfuls of blood, saying that he was fierce and that they would meet again in the future. Everything would be fine. Taoist Black-White also thought this in his heart. He looked at Chinyu with a deep meaning in his eyes, as if saying that he understood and didn't need to worry. Brat, do you know where my reputation as Taoist Black-White came from? Clothes, shoes, hair, and the like aren't important at all. Being white on the outside and black on the inside is a profound boundary. If you don't die today, how can I be on good terms with the Chi family? Haha, you can go in peace. Hum. There was another invisible humming sound. Everyone could hear it, but their minds only wavered for a moment before they regained their clarity. Of course, this wasn't because Taoist Black-White's curtain of darkness was weak, but because all of his strength was gathered within himself, with only a small amount of his aura leaking out. This made it even more terrifying. Qin Yu stiffened. Everyone had expected this. Next, he would spit out blood. Little brat, your acting skills are far from good. Unfortunately, while the audience had guessed the opening, they didn't know what would happen next. Within Qin Yu's soul space, Purple Moon and Mimi were busy fighting for food. A mass of black fog shivered and was instantly eaten up. Qin Yu said, "Is that enough?" Mimi beamed. "Not bad, not bad. It really is delicious." Purple Moon's light dimmed, and she maintained a cold and aloof posture. She didn't respond to Qin Yu's words, but looking at her appearance, she should be satisfied. Schwa, his consciousness returned to his body. Qin Yu slowly said, "The soul burial sex curtain of darkness truly lives up to its reputation." There really weren't many foods that could catch the fancy of that little lass Mimi and Purple Moon. Taoist Black-White's mind shook, even concealing his disappointment. This boy was actually completely fine. His lips twitched, and he squeezed out a smile, making an expression as if he were saying that their cooperation was quite good. "I also admire your strength. Today, Kacha," a clear sound spread out. The entire dawn perch fell deathly silent. Everyone's eyes widened, as if they had seen a ghost. They stared at Qin Yu, at the corpse in his hand whose neck was bent at an exaggerated angle. Qi Yunshu's bloodshot eyes widened. There wasn't much panic in them, only disbelief, as if he were saying, "How could you dare to kill me?" But Qin Yu had killed him. His actions were so clean that it surpassed everyone's expectations. If it weren't for the fact that he had to bring food for the two guests in his soul space, he would have already done it. Since there was no need to wait, why waste time? If he killed someone, there would definitely be trouble. At the very least, he would have thoroughly offended this Qi family. But Qin Yu had his own reasons. The reason Qi Yunshu came here today was to draw him in, and this matter was inextricably related to the demon blood crystals. Qin Yu didn't have any evidence, but he didn't need any evidence for this matter. He could freely prove himself. Thus, he killed someone. He used Qi Yunshu's death as a warning to everyone who tried to do something to him. He wasn't a soft persimmon. If they wanted to pinch him, then they would have to be prepared to die. Perhaps he was a bit impulsive, but Qin Yu had to display the toughest attitude possible, because once he retreated, these people would only take a yard after taking an inch. Chapter 519. Wasn't he supposed to take this chance to step down? How could he suddenly kill someone? This change in direction was a bit too big and nearly broke his waist. Everyone stared blankly at this scene, their minds blanking out. After an unknown period of time, some people finally regained their composure. They subconsciously shivered and began to draw back. They had never been afraid of things becoming too big for them to watch. But today's matter had surpassed their limits. If they continued to stay here, they might be caught up in a disaster. At that time, they wouldn't even have a place to cry. Of course, it was best to leave as soon as possible. There was no lack of smart people. Even if they didn't think of this at first, they still reacted as they saw the surrounding people draw back. In a few breaths' time, the dense crowd outside dispersed in all directions. There was a guest staying at Dawn Perch and who didn't even return to his room. He turned and ran out of the inn. He absolutely couldn't stay here any longer. This was Heavenly Demon City's Qi family. Although they weren't a noble family of the demonic path, their true strength wasn't any worse than a true noble family of the demonic path. Although Qi Yunshu wasn't favored, he was still the son of the Qi family's main bloodline and had an incomparably honored status. Now that he was killed in his family's sphere of influence, how could this matter be settled? Taoist Black-White shivered. He could no longer maintain his calm and gentle tone. "You killed Qi Yunshu. You actually killed him." This madman, Did he not know that the Chi family's old ancestor liked this ignorant and incompetent grandson of his? Bastard, if you want to die, then you actually want to drag them down with you. You really deserve to die. Chi Yinshu had died on the spot. Although it wasn't directly related to them, would the Chi family really think so? They would definitely vent their anger on them. Now, the only method was to kill this brat and use his head to exchange for the Chi family's forgiveness. Qin Yu's eyes were calm. Since he decided to kill someone, he had naturally prepared himself for the consequences. I killed him, but what do you want? He let go, and the corpse fell to the ground. This carefree attitude, he simply couldn't tolerate it. Taoist Black-White roared out, "You evil beast, die for me." Bang! A wild aura shot into the skies. The ground shattered inch by inch. Countless beautifully trimmed flowers and grass were uprooted and turned to dust. Qin Yu narrowed his eyes. Although he looked a bit strange, his strength wasn't bad. But compared to Zhao Qianyuan, he was far worse. At this moment, 3 cold, killing intents suddenly erupted, locking onto Taoist Black-White. He frowned and stopped what he was doing. Turning his head, his pupils shrank, and he quickly restrained his aura. True Demon Guard. A layer of cold sweat instantly appeared on Taoist Black-White's forehead. Even if the position of the Holy Palace's Supreme Elder was currently vacant, the True Demon Guards were still the Holy King's personal guards in name. To oppose a True Demon Guard was the same as offending a Holy King. At other times it might have been better, but the various influences of the demonic path were all trying to gain the support of the Holy Palace. For something like this to occur at such a critical juncture, Taoist Black-White didn't doubt that he would die an incomparably miserable death in order to quell the anger of the Holy Palace. A True Demon Guard asked coldly, "What do you want to do?" Taoist Black-White squeezed out a smile. "This is a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. I was just about to capture this murderer. Fellow Taoists, please take a look. The Qi family's direct descendant Qi Yunshu was killed by this murderer just now. His methods were extremely cruel." The Qi family, the 3 True Demon Guards furrowed their eyebrows, but they soon relaxed. "This matter will be investigated by the demonic path. You may draw back." In terms of cultivation, even if the 3 True Demon Guards joined forces, they still might not be Taoist Black-White's match. But, as the personal guards of the Holy King, their status was extremely high and they naturally had the confidence to do so. A True Demon Guard stepped forwards. He cupped his hands together and smiled. "Fellow Taoist Yao Bin, we meet again." He had already seen these 3 people when they brought him to the City Lord Mansion last time. Qin Yu cupped his hands together. "May I ask why you 3 have come here?" The True Demon Guard said, "Today the 3 of us have been ordered to deliver the documents and seals." His smile widened. "Congratulations, fellow Taoist Yao Bin. After today, you are a member of the demonic path. I wish fellow Taoist a bright future." Taoist Black-White's eyes widened. He finally understood. No wonder this matter had to be investigated by the demonic path. This was the privilege of demonic path cultivators. Even if they committed a crime, they could only be punished by the demonic path. No one else was allowed to interfere. Wasn't this very overbearing and unreasonable? That's right, this was how it was. But the demonic path had this sort of qualifications and confidence. However, the attitudes of these 3 True Demon Guards seemed a bit too gentle. Even if they were facing someone from the demonic path, they should still remain cold and aloof. Could it be that this Yao Bin's status was different? Taoist Black-White suddenly had a premonition that Qi Yunshu would die in vain today. In other words, because of Qi Yunshu's death, he was doomed to incur a great deal of trouble. As Taoist Black-White thought of this, he nearly cried. Everything was fine, so why did something like this have to happen to him? What an unlucky year. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. He hadn't heard of this news yet, so how come the True Demon Guards had suddenly come? Moreover, they had come at such a perfect time. His thoughts raced, but at least this matter was beneficial to him. He quietly received the items and expressed his thanks to the 3 people. The True Demon Guard swept his eyes over Qi Yunshu's corpse. His eyes flashed. "Fellow Taoist Yao Bin, When a demonic path cultivator faces danger, they can randomly kill someone. He paused for a moment and continued to say, of course, even if the fault lies with fellow Taoist, as a demonic path disciple, you can still enjoy immunity. All you need to do is pay some spirit stones. This was the same as obtaining a legal license to kill someone. Moreover, it was issued by the demonic path, one of the strongest influences in the land of divinity and demons. No matter how he looked at it, it gave off the feeling of a gangster. But Chinyu had to admit that this feeling wasn't bad at all. He smiled and said, "Thank you for the reminder, but for today's matter, I won't compensate you with a single spirit stone." Since he wanted to express his most unyielding attitude, he naturally had to do it to the end. In any case, he had already offended the chief family, so he didn't fear the enmity between them deepening. The true demon guard's eyes brightened. He told Chinyu that 3 days from now, someone would bring him away. Without saying anything further, he cupped his hands together and bid his farewells. Since both sides weren't familiar with each other right now, going too far was as bad as falling short. Chinyu sent the 3 people away. Taoist Black-White didn't say a single word. He grabbed the still dazed Ma, Song Yun, and brought Chi Yunshu's corpse with him. With a gloomy expression, he quickly left. At this moment, Black-White's mood was even worse. This was because he thought of something even worse. Offending a tyrannical junior wasn't anything at all. Offending a demonic path disciple wasn't anything at all. But when both sides superimposed on each other, that meant he had offended a tyrannical demonic path disciple. Moreover, he was very young and seemed to have great potential. This was truly hard to bear. Who knew just how far this boy would be able to walk in the future? Although he had a considerable status in the Soul Burial sect, and the chances of him being punished in the future weren't high, even a 1% chance was enough to make him feel uncomfortable. After sending off the 3 true demon guards, Chinyu returned to the inn. Duan Ling Tian and the other 2 knelt to the ground with red eyes. "Thank you, my lord. Thank you, my lord." He didn't know what Chinyu was thinking, but from what he saw, it was clear that Chinyu had killed someone today to help him. How could he not be grateful? As for whether or not the chief family would retaliate against him because of this, he no longer cared. After all, he had picked up his life today. Once he returned, he would immediately arrange for his little sister to leave. As long as he stayed in Heavenly Demon City, the chief family shouldn't try to track down his little sister's whereabouts. That was enough. The empty and messy dawn perch and was in a mess. The shopkeeper's complexion was pale white, and he seemed to have lost his soul. He hadn't done anything wrong today. Chi Yunshu's death absolutely couldn't be blamed on him. But in this world, there was no such thing as absolute fairness. The Chi family's young master had died in the business he was responsible for. So how could he have any good ending? Perhaps the best result would be being expelled from Heavenly Demon City. If he offended the Chi family, he feared he wouldn't have any foothold in Heavenly Demon City in the future. He had toiled his entire life, starting from a small servant boy. How much pain and suffering had he suffered in order to climb up to his current status? Now that he had become nothing, who could accept that? Moreover, he wasn't alone right now. His entire family was counting on him to make a living. The shopkeeper looked at Chinyu. He should hate this person. If it weren't for him, would he have fallen to such a state? But he didn't dare to. Chi Yunshu had killed him just like that. And from the current situation, he didn't seem to have suffered any harm at all. Moreover, he was just an old man without any power or influence. Duan San crawled up and walked in front of the shopkeeper. He fell to his knees. "Uncle, although we are separated by several generations and our bloodline is thin, I know you took care of me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to enter Don Perchin. Today, I have stirred up trouble for you. I fear this nephew will never be able to repay you in this life. In my next life, I will work like an ox or a horse to make it up to you." The shopkeeper's lips trembled. He let out a long sigh. "Hurry up and leave. The further you go, the better." Duan San smiled. "I will send my little sister away and then stay here. Otherwise, the Chi family definitely won't give up. I will have to give them an explanation." This explanation was his life. If he died, his little sister would live. The shopkeeper was a shrewd man. He quickly understood this point. He patted Duan San Er's shoulder with a trembling hand. Originally, I wanted to raise you into my successor. You brat, you are willing to endure hardship, and you are also smart. But what a pity, your life isn't good. Qin Yu could see that Duan San was exuding a carefree and relaxed aura. This had nothing to do with strength or breadth of mind. Rather, it was a calm and unhurried expression that came from disregarding life and death. With a thought, he guessed what the two of them were thinking. He couldn't help but reveal a bit of appreciation in his eyes. This Duan San was actually someone who cared deeply about relationships. When he was threatened by Qi Yun Shu, he didn't say anything even when death was at hand. Although there was an 80% chance that this was because he was afraid of his little sister's retaliation. If he cared so much about family, he couldn't be too bad. If it were him, he would likely make the same choice as Duan San. Subconsciously, Qin Yu thought of Guling. Was that girl doing well? Although the world was vast, he had very few family members. Ningling was one, and so was Ling. A person's fate was mysterious and wonderful. Duan San racked his brains to curry favor with Qin Yu, but when he fell into a hopeless situation and was prepared to welcome death, the opportunity actually fell into his hands. Qin Yu called out to Duan San, who was about to leave. I looked through the document just now. Demonic Path disciples have the right to recruit several personal servants. If you're willing, I can give you 2 spots. Duan San was stunned. The shopkeeper kicked him to his knees. You little brat, what are you waiting for? Duan San quickly kowtowed, tears flowing down his face. He knew that Qin Yu was saving his life, and even his little sister's life. Otherwise, with a weak and frail girl like her, without him to shelter her from the wind and rain, just how long would she be able to live? It wasn't that he couldn't think of it, but that he didn't want to think of it. He didn't dare to think of it, because as long as he was alive, there would be hope. How could he bring his little sister down with him? Before his mother died, Duan San had promised to protect his little sister for the rest of his life. Even if he didn't accomplish this, if he died in front of his little sister and saw his mother in the underworld, she probably wouldn't be too angry. But now, all difficulties had vanished. He didn't need to die, and his little sister wouldn't leave him. Good, this was far too good. Snot and tears mixed together. Duan San face was a mess. He looked up at Qin Yu with teary eyes. From this moment on, he made up his mind. In this life, for the rest of his life, he would use it to repay this kindness. Qin Yu's eyes were a bit sore. It had been a long time since he had this sort of mood swings. He took a deep breath, his voice unconsciously gentle. Go, bring your little sister here. He turned and walked toward the back courtyard. He paused for a moment and then said, Go to the courtyard I live in. Don't stay outside. Chapter 520. The 3 true demon guards left Don Perch Inn and boarded a speed car to return to the City Lord Mansion. The one who had been speaking with Qin Yu was clearly the one with the most prestige out of the 3. He leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes in meditation. The 2 true demon guards looked hesitant. They looked at each other, and one of them said, Big brother, aren't your words too straightforward today? Wang Chao opened his eyes. We're all brothers, so there's no need to hide anything. Do you 2 think that I shouldn't remind Yao Bin about killing people? The corners of his mouth turned up. Fine, let's not talk about anything else. Even if the Qi family finds out about what I said today, what do you think they can do? Do they dare to deal with me? The true fiend guard glared. They dare. Wang Chao smiled. Isn't that enough? Remember, us brothers were lucky and we suffered a great deal to become true demon guards. As long as we have this identity, no one can touch us unless we commit a great crime. The 3rd true demon guard said, Big brother, that's not what we mean. Although we're not afraid of the Qi clan, there's still the tyrants of Heavenly Demon City. You and I have relatives and friends behind us. If we offend them, they won't dare to do anything on the surface, but it's still disgusting if they do something behind our backs. Wang Chao pointed and said, Second bro, listen carefully. Third bro's words are more accurate. However, I can't explain too much about this matter. You just have to remember that I have my reasons for befriending Yao Bin. After pausing for a moment, he decided to reveal a little more. Whether the three of us can achieve meteoric success in the future will most likely depend on this person. He wouldn't tell them that he had inadvertently seen the demon envoy and Lord Yin Lu enter Dawn Perch residence in private. Furthermore, they wouldn't say that it was Yao Bin who had troubled the two of them to come here. With Lord Demon Envoy's status, would he make a trip just for a nobody? Even though Wang Chao didn't know why, he knew that this was his opportunity. Although life was long, there are only a few opportunities in the world. He would definitely not miss it. Chief family, dominating the Heavenly Devil sect for tens of thousands of years, its inheritance lasting for 10 generations. Geniuses came forth in large numbers, and experts were as common as the clouds. That was exactly what he said. Although such a Qi clan was unable to be conferred the title of a noble family due to certain reasons, its true strength and foundation were already sufficient. In the Heavenly Demon City, it might be a little too much to describe them as absolute, but it was definitely not common. But today, a direct descendant of the Qi clan was casually killed in the Heavenly Devil City like slaughtering a chicken or a dog. This sort of matter hadn't occurred for many years. Thus, when Qi Yunshu's corpse was sent back to the Qi family by Taoist Blackwhite, the entire Qi family residence was instantly set ablaze. The violent killing intent soared to the heavens. Countless cultivators in Heavenly Devil City were shocked. They widened their eyes and waited for the Qi clan's response. This matter had already spread through the entire Heavenly Devil City at the fastest speed possible through the mouths of the scattered cultivators who had left Dawn Perch residence. The killer, Yao Bin, was now one of the new disciples of the demonic path. Soon, the Qi family's response spread to the outside world. The Qi family's old ancestor personally appeared to suppress the agitated Qi family juniors who wanted to kill and take revenge. His original words were, "If you don't want to live, then don't implicate the entire Qi family." That is a disciple of the demonic path. Touching him is disrespect to the demonic path. These words were a bit boastful, but the general meaning was correct. Killing a demonic path disciple was absolutely not a trivial matter. Unless it was done stealthily or in some special situation, once it was discovered, the demonic path would never let this matter rest. In terms of protecting one's own people, no one dared to call themselves first. In the entire land of divinity and demons, if the demonic path thought they were second, then no one dared to call themselves first. Many people were disappointed. They couldn't help but secretly say some sour words. What 10,000-year-old Qi family? They were also characters that bullied the weak and feared the strong. Those who said these words didn't understand the way of survival of a wealthy family. This was because no matter what you wanted to do, your slogan had to be correct. And the slogan you shouted often had nothing to do with what you wanted to do. In fact, both sides even contradicted each other. In the ancestral temple, Qi Yunshu's corpse lay on the cold floor. His complexion was pale white, and his eyes were still wide open, filled with disbelief at the moment of his death. Qi Dongtai's eyes were half closed. He sat in a high chair, and his voice was light. I already said that people shouldn't be too arrogant, otherwise sooner or later disaster will fall upon them. Sixth brother was obedient in front of me, but once he left the family, he acted like a tyrant. Although I'm old, my eyes aren't blind, so I naturally know this. That's why he suffered a fatal disaster today. He only has himself to blame. An indifferent voice spread out in the ancestral temple. The heads of the fourth branch lowered their heads, not daring to speak up. Everyone knew that although the old man cursed and cursed, the truth was that in his heart, the one he liked the most was this ignorant and incompetent Qi Yunshu. He had once privately told an old servant that this little monkey resembled him the most when he was young. Although he appeared calm on the surface, it was unknown just how angry he was in his heart. And indeed, Qi Dongtai's eyes flashed open. But remember this, for our Qi family to rise from being small and weak to become one of the overlords of Heavenly Demon City, and for our lineage to continue to this day. That is not because we understand reason, but because we are ruthless enough. Sixth brother is in the wrong, but even if he deserves to die, we can only ask our ancestors to punish him and kill him. There is no reason for others to do so. Right now, many people are looking at the Chi family as a joke. But let them laugh, because the truth trumps all. I will not allow Yao Bin to enter the demonic path alive. He killed people in Heavenly Demon City, so he must remain here. The third branch head fell to his knees, tears and snot streaming down his face. Thank you, old ancestor. If sixth brother knows this in the underworld, he can rest in peace. He had over a dozen sons, so it was worth debating just how sad he was. But on the surface, he had to pretend to be in so much pain that he wished he were dead. Chi Dantai frowned in disgust, as if he didn't like third brother's exaggerated performance. But as he thought about how his son had died, he endured his reprimanding. He turned and said in a soft voice, "Go. Let him die a bit more peacefully." The old servant that had followed him for many years grinned, revealing 2 missing yellow teeth. He nodded and left, vanishing into the shadows. Looking at this old fellow who was even older than their father and seemed as if he could kick himself at any moment, the other 4 heads revealed looks of awe. Their father's strength, besides the legendary old ancestor who was still in life and death seclusion, was naturally the strongest in the Chi family. But this old servant was the one they feared the most. Since their father had sent him today, Yao Bin was doomed. Chi Dantai closed his eyes. Let's wait here. There will soon be a result. I cannot allow sixth brother to die alone. Dawn Perch residence. Yesterday's bustling hustle and bustle had dispersed. All that was left behind was a desolate scene. In the entire inn, besides a few servants on duty, there wasn't a single person to be seen. Because the illumination array formations had been destroyed, large swathes of the area were in a state of darkness. As one walked in, they subconsciously felt a bit of fear. The old servant's figure walked out from the darkness. He looked up and grinned. Not too far away, a servant opened his mouth, but no words came out. He clutched his neck and fell to the ground. Blood gushed out from his nose and mouth, quickly soaking the ground. The old servant slowly walked forwards. His speed was slow, his footsteps echoing in the empty inn. But what was strange was that every time he passed through the darkness, his figure seemed to fuse into it. When he appeared again, he was already far away. So, it didn't take much time for the old servant to enter the rear courtyard. He stood in the light and looked at the independent courtyard in front of him. He nodded, as if he appreciated the construction style of this gate. Then, he lifted a hand and slapped it forward. The incomparably sturdy door that was reinforced by the array formation seemed to have suffered a terrifying corrosion. Without a sound, it directly turned into countless black ashes that scattered down. Wisps of black fog spread along the ruins of the array formation, destroying the entire array formation. There was no alarm at all. With a smile, the old servant walked up the steps and entered the courtyard. And at this time, the dead servant in the front courtyard had already been discovered. But when those people went up to investigate, they all fell to the ground, bleeding from their head and dying. The shopkeeper's eyes widened. He shouted, "Don't go over there. Stand back." After walking a safe distance away, he turned to look at the rear courtyard, a deep worry in his eyes. Creak, in the quiet night, the sound of the door opening was particularly grating to the ears. The old servant's eyebrows rose up, a bit of surprise on his face. He looked up. Chinyu stepped out, his eyes calm. A chief family member? The old servant shook his head, his voice unpleasant to the ears. "No, I'm just a dog that follows the young master." Chinyu waved his hand. "Forget it. I wasn't curious about your identity to begin with. If you want to kill me, then do it." The old servant cackled. "Youngsters these days are truly amazing. But since you cooperated well enough and didn't try to ask for help, I will give you a quick death." Countless black threads appeared out of thin air. They were like a giant spider web that had already quietly sealed off the entire courtyard. As the old servant lifted a hand, These black threads rapidly grew, approaching Chinyu. This gloomy and decaying aura was a curse. Chinyu's eyes flashed. But before he could ask anything, Mimi's excited cheers echoed out from his soul space. Chinyu, I discovered that following by your side was the best decision I ever made. You're simply a divine tool that automatically hunts for food. I want this curse, I want it, I want it. Black lines immediately covered his forehead. Little girl, what do you mean by, I want it, I want it? Whenever you brought up this topic, it felt extremely dirty. Divine artifact? Divine artifact my ass. The purple moon suddenly brightened. A deep purple light covered his soul space, but it left a small area for Mimi. This was a tacit understanding between the two sides. The little girl was flustered. Curse, what do you want it for? Be careful that you don't get a stomachache. If you defecate in Chinyu's soul space, he definitely won't be willing. I can eat it. I don't need you to share it with me. Big sister, you should go to sleep. All right, but I want more than half. I want half. I absolutely cannot be less. It was clear that Mimi was being pushed back again and again. But these words seemed to reveal an important piece of information. Purple Moon's gender was Big Sister. How'd he know this? Moreover, it seemed that there was a great deal of communication between the two sides. Chinyu's heart suddenly filled with sorrow. This was because he discovered that although he was the master of Purple Moon, she was cold and aloof and hadn't spoken a single word to him at all. He couldn't think about this. Tears welled up in his eyes. As his thoughts raced, the black threads had already arrived. They wrapped around Chinyu's body, layer after layer, submerging him. The old servant revealed a look of surprise. After listening to Taoist Blackwhite's words, he originally thought that he would have to spend some effort. He always felt that something was wrong. But since he was entangled in his curse net, unless he was at the Calamity Immortal Realm, it would be impossible for him to escape this calamity. Was Yao Bin at the Calamity Immortal Realm? What a joke. So what was the reason? Did he need to know? Since Chinyu wanted to die, he was happy to save time. But soon, the old servant couldn't be happy. This was because he discovered that Chinyu still hadn't died. Moreover, the power of his curse was being consumed at an astonishing rate. In just a short period of time, he had lost 10% of it. 10% of the curse was enough to poison half of Heavenly Demon City to death, but he still hadn't died? This boy was truly strange. Did he have some sort of treasure that could absorb curse power? But if he thought he could rely on this to preserve his life, he was far too naive. Chapter 521. Chinyu couldn't remember when he had become the nemesis of all dark and gloomy powers. Whether it was poisons or curses, he didn't reject them. The more the better. Each and every one of them had a fiendish appearance. They were simply food carts with red flags on them, blowing their horns and giving their all for the guests in their soul space. This sort of spirit was worthy of praise. Unfortunately, these food carts of love were destined to be one-off. It was a small regret that they couldn't be encouraged to work harder and continue to work harder. Within the layers of black curse threads, Chinyu's lips twitched. He felt a bit ashamed of his lack of compassion. Others were already pitiful enough, so how could he mercilessly mock them? Between people, the most basic emotions had to be taken into account. I can't laugh. I have to be solemn and dignified. But it's really hard to endure. In particular, through the cosmic sea-cross bell, Chinyu could faintly feel the fluctuations of the old servant's thoughts not too far away. You have a lot of curse strength. I'm only afraid you don't have enough. 20%, 30%, 40%. The calm and composed old servant suddenly revealed a dignified expression. With so much curse strength, even a peak blue sea would be able to kill several of them. Yet this boy hadn't died yet. No, something must have gone wrong. A trace of unease gushed out from the old servant's heart. Beads of sweat dripped down his forehead, as if something bad was about to happen. Perhaps he should be more cautious and investigate the situation before doing anything. The old servant's thoughts stirred. He wanted to take back the cursed strength, but in the next moment his complexion changed. This was because he discovered to his amazement that the curse that wrapped around Qin Yu's body seemed to grow onto him. He simply couldn't take it back. No, not only could he not take it back, but he couldn't break it. It was like a pair of terrifying shackles that connected the two of them together. The old servant took a deep breath. His incomparably old face seemed to stir up a whirlwind. All the wrinkles twisted and twisted, making him look fierce and terrifying. Open! With a loud shout, the black threads began to burn. Within the black and gray flames, they were burnt to ashes. The old servant's back instantly bent, as if he had consumed too much strength. He didn't even look at Qin Yu, who was wrapped up in the black and gray flames. He turned and left. His body sank into the darkness, fusing into it and vanishing from sight. The older one was in Jianghu, the more timid they became. This saying was absolutely reasonable. This old servant had lived to this day and had killed countless people in his life. What scene had he not seen? However, it was precisely because he had seen so much that he understood what it meant to fail miserably in an easy task. He had seen it with his own eyes many times. The Qi clan was very powerful, and they had many ways to kill Yao Bin. There was no need for them to take the risk. Even if they were to retreat in defeat today, they could always find another opportunity in the future. He was old and his spirit was not good, but he never lacked patience. Therefore, the old servant walked neatly without any hesitation. In the courtyard, the ash-black flames gradually extinguished, revealing Qin Yu's calm face. His eyes flashed with a bit of surprise. Shadow step. It turned out that he was not the only one who knew how to do this. Although Undying was still in a deep slumber state, he had clearly recovered a great deal. This was because he could now use the supernatural ability he gifted Qin Yu. So, after a moment of surprise, Qin Yu said in a soft voice, "The guests haven't eaten their fill yet, so how can I let you leave?" He stepped into the light and shadows, his body blending into it. Outside the Dawn Perch Inn, under a large tree, the street lamp illuminated the mottled shadows of the tree. Somewhere in the shadows of the branches, there was a sudden movement. The old servant walked out, his face pale. He turned his head and looked at the quiet Dawn Perch Inn. His face darkened. For so many years, as long as he took action, he would always succeed. He never imagined that today he would be pecked in the eye. This boy was too strange. He had to tell the young master as soon as possible so that he could be more careful and not be careless. However, with the young master's personality, the more outstanding this Yao Bin's performance was, the heavier his killing intent would be. He would definitely think of a way to keep Yao Bin in Heavenly Demon City. The old servant's eyes blurred, revealing a bit of infatuation. The young master's personality was just so likable. He coughed several times and was about to leave when his complexion changed. He whipped his head around. The shadows of the trees parted like water. Qin Yu smiled and said, "Since you've come, why go back? Life in this world is filled with hardships. Let me help you free yourself from them." The old servant cried out, "That's impossible. You actually know the shadow transformation art." Qin Yu shook his head. "I call a shadow step. I don't know what shadow transformation art is, but that isn't important. Let's continue." The old servant turned and ran away. Seeing the old servant disappear into the shadows, Qin Yu's eyes flashed. He followed. In a corner, two people appeared one after another. Then in an alley, in a loft, Qin Yu's lips curved up. Indeed, the so-called shadow transformation art was extremely taxing on the soul. After using it again and again, the old servant's aura weakened a great deal. That was about enough. Then it was time to end this. If he played around too much, he would end up ruining himself. Schwa, shadow transformation art appeared once more. The old servant was panting for breath. His originally pale face was now devoid of blood. He raised his head and glanced at the distant, brightly lit and majestic mansion. Joy flashed in his dim eyes. If he used the shadow transformation art once more, he would be able to smoothly enter the Qi family. At that time, he would be safe and the young master would naturally protect him. The old servant smiled. He took a deep breath and forcefully suppressed the feeling of his soul turning into nothingness. Then he stepped forwards. His body began to transform, fusing with the shadows beneath his feet. Just as he was about to finish, a hand reached out from the shadows. Chinyu calmly said, "Just what are you thinking of doing?" The old servant was shocked. He didn't care about exposing himself. Just as he was about to cry out for help, he froze. His weak soul could no longer resist the suppression of the cosmic sea-cross bell. Faint traces of purple moonlight shined into his soul space. At this time, the purple moon also attacked. This was quite strange. It seemed that the cursed strength within the old servant's body was to its liking. Bang! A terrifying strength erupted from Yu's body. The old servant's body tensed, and the cursed strength in his body surged out like a broken dam. If this sort of feeling had to be described, it would be like someone smashing open your skull, taking out a tube, and forcefully sucking it in. Just thinking about that feeling made one's hair stand on end. In fact, the pain the old servant was withstanding right now was absolutely far more terrifying than this. This was because the cursed strength in his body had already fused together with him. Every inch of his flesh and blood, every inch of his bones, every inch of his organs was twitching. Indeed, if one walked by the river, sooner or later their shoes would be wet. In this life, he had killed far too many people, and his retribution had finally arrived. The old servant knew a long time ago that ever since he stepped onto the cursed path, he was doomed to die a miserable death. But he didn't regret this, because this was what his young master needed. For his young master, he was willing to do anything, even if his young master never knew what he was thinking. But was this important? The old servant used up the last of his strength to straighten his curled back. He looked up at the chief family's residence, not too far away, and let out a light breath. His pupils began to slacken. His life had been far too tiring. It was time for him to take a good rest. After several breaths of time, Chinyu loosened his hand, allowing the thin corpse to fall to the ground. He glanced at the chief family and then stepped into the shadows. Ancestral Temple. Chi Dongtai, who was sitting in the high chair with his eyes closed in meditation, suddenly opened his eyes and spat out a mouthful of black blood. The fourth branch head was frightened. He said in panic, "Father, what is wrong?" Chi Dongtai had a blank look in his eyes. After several breaths of time, he suddenly stood up and walked outside. A moment later, the main doors of the Chi family opened. Chi Dongtai silently walked out, heading straight towards the willow tree not too far away. A corpse was quietly lying beneath the willow tree. Its body was bent over, as if it had suffered a great deal of pain before dying. Even so, its face was calm and peaceful. The fourth branch head's pupils shrank, revealing a look of fear and alarm. This was because the one who had died beneath the willow tree was his father's old servant. How could this sinister and terrifying old dog quietly die like this? They were shocked, speechless. But deep in their hearts, they couldn't help but feel a bit more relaxed. Of course, the sorrow on their faces didn't lessen in the least because of this. This old dog had followed his father since he was a child and was the person he trusted the most in his life. In his heart, his status was likely even higher than that of his sons. Chi Dongtai took a deep breath. He squatted down and slowly reached out a hand, closing the old servant's eyes that were staring at the Chi family's residence. When the eyes left his face, the steady palm actually began to gently tremble. The third branch head fell to his knees. "Father, the dead cannot come back to life. Please restrain your grief and don't harm your body." Chi Dongtai spun around and sent him flying with a slap. "Father!" The third branch head's face was swollen and purple. His eyes were filled with innocence. Chi Dongtai harshly said, "Shut up. If it weren't for the little beast you gave birth to, Xia Yin wouldn't have died today. If you weren't my son, I would have killed you right now." No one had the time to gloat. Everyone was silent out of fear. They looked at the old ancestor who was like a volcano, their faces filled with panic. The old ancestor cultivated his mind and soul and hadn't lost his temper for many years. Even when Qi Yunshu died, he was still able to maintain his calm. It could be imagined just how bad his mood was right now. No longer paying attention to the people kneeling on the ground, Chi Dantai picked up the dead old servant from the ground. He suddenly discovered that the old servant was as light as a feather, without any pressure at all. A sour feeling surged in his heart. He looked up and forcefully suppressed these emotions. Then, he turned and walked towards the Qi family residence, whispering to himself, "Xiaoyan, we have been friends for a lifetime. I naturally know what you are thinking in your heart, but I cannot accept it. Thus, I pretended that I didn't know. In truth, I wanted to tell you a long time ago that there was no need for you to live so hard. But I was greedy and didn't want you to leave the Qi family. I hope that you could help me strengthen the Qi family. You stayed in the Qi family your entire life, but when you finally died, you died outside the walls of my Qi family. I find this hard to bear. But don't worry, I know who killed you. I guarantee you that he will leave with you. Of course, I am well aware that the person who killed you isn't easy to deal with, so I will quietly wait for a chance. I ask that you be more patient. What I promised you, I will definitely accomplish it." Climbing up the stairs, Chi Dantai looked up at the main entrance. "How many years has it been since you entered or left from the main entrance? You said that this was the right of the master, and that as a servant, you had to abide by your duties. You told everyone that you were a dog at my side, but I always regarded you as my brother. Today, this young master will bring you home from the main entrance." Chapter 522. Someone from a Qi family had died. This couldn't be hidden from the eyes of those with a clear mind. When it was determined that the one who died was the old servant beside the Qi family old ancestor, countless people widened their eyes in shock and panic. Then, with the fastest speed possible, they withdrew all the people they sent to investigate. The old servant had always declared himself to be a dog, but in truth he had an extremely high status in the Qi family. Sometimes he could even issue orders on behalf of the Qi family old ancestor. When the heads of the Qi family's fourth branch met him, they had to greet him like a nephew, not daring to show the slightest disrespect. If such an important character died in the night, would the Qi family old ancestor give up? Moreover, if Qi Yunshu was added in, the Qi family had already lost 2 lives to Yao Bin's hands. As for why it was Yao Bin, this question didn't need an answer, and there was no need for evidence. Everyone was afraid that they would be implicated by the Qi family's crazy revenge, so they couldn't wait to retract their feelers. But what surprised them was that the Qi family was abnormally quiet. They actually didn't respond to this matter at all. But this time, no one went to mock the Qi family. This was because the old servant's death had already demonstrated their tough stance. Even if one became a disciple of the demonic path, they would still make them pay with their lives. Their current silence couldn't be because they had given up. The greatest possibility was that they were waiting for a chance. This matter wouldn't be easily forgotten. City Lord Mansion. The Lord Demon Envoy played with a ball of light in his hands. Light and shadow flickered within. It was the complete process of how Qi Yunshu and the old servant had been killed. Xiaoyan's cursed power is quite strange. He was actually able to ignore it. No, to be more accurate, he plundered all of the cursed power in Xiaoyan's body. He whispered to himself, and then revealed a smile. This brat Yao Bin is even more mysterious than I imagined. This was for the best. He feared that Tai Bin was too weak and wished that he was even fiercer than he was. The more cards he had in his hands, the less likely it was to die. This was because the road he wanted to walk was far too dangerous. His 5 fingers closed, and the ball of light was annihilated. The Lord Demon Envoy calmed down and looked outside. Yin Lu walked in with light steps. She was like a honey peach, each and every movement of hers filled with charm and charm. Lord Demon Envoy seems to be quite leisurely today. I'm surprised that you aren't cultivating. Ripples of light flowed in her beautiful eyes, as if she was silently saying something, causing one to be unable to help but be mesmerized. The Demon Envoy had a calm expression. "Why have you come?" She rolled her eyes at him. Fortunately, she had come to understand his thoughts over the years. If he was unwilling to talk about it, there was no need for her to pester him about it. Yin Lu placed her hands on the long table and lowered her waist. Her chest became more and more shocking. She said softly, "I came to remind you, Lord Demon Envoy. It seems that many people are interested in the kid you've been paying attention to." The Demon Envoy was expressionless. "So what?" Yin Lu blinked. When a mature woman made such a childish gesture, it was especially alluring. "Are you really not worried at all? Although that brat has some cultivation and his methods are ruthless enough, the ones paying attention to him are all big tigers. If you're not careful, you'll die." The Demon Envoy lightly said, "If he dies, then he dies. What does it have to do with me?" He looked up, his eyes sharp. "I don't like being tested by others. You're no different." Yin Lu humphed. After saying that she didn't want to say anything, she turned and walked away, leaving behind a graceful and charming woman. The Demon Envoy furrowed his eyebrows. As expected, she had sensed something, but he had brought Yin Lu with him because he had no other choice. Otherwise, if he were to go out alone, he would definitely be sensed by someone's divine sense. Luckily, Yin Lu wouldn't ruin his plans, and she wouldn't randomly say anything. Otherwise, that would truly be troublesome. Thinking about the situation Yao Bin was facing right now, the Demon Envoy frowned. Perhaps he should think of a way to find a protective talisman for him. Although it might not be able to scare away all the wolves, it would at least give him a layer of protection, or at the very least, in a dangerous moment, it would give him a chance to intervene and protect his position. Otherwise, once others discovered his true thoughts, Yao Bin would undoubtedly die. In a dark study, the doors and windows were tightly shut. A dim yellow oil lamp emitted a weak light that was swallowed up by the darkness, leaving one feeling particularly depressed. A figure was sitting behind a round table. His back was facing the door, as if he were savoring the charm hidden in the darkness. "Elder, our probing failed. That trash Qi Yunshu was killed on the spot." The Qi family retaliated, but unfortunately, the cursed master they sent also died not too far away from the Qi family's residence, without leaving behind any useful information. The black-clothed man fell to his knees. This subordinate was incompetent. "Elder, please punish me." As he spoke, his voice was clearly distorted, dry, and without any emotion. "I already know what happened, so I don't blame you for this. I underestimated Yao Bin's reaction. I never thought he would dare to counterattack in such a strong manner." He paused for a moment before continuing, "But we didn't come away empty-handed." The black-clothed man revealed a puzzled look. "Elder, please explain?" The figure seemed to smile. "Qi Yunshu died, and Xia Yan also died. The Qi family has already formed a mortal enmity with Yao Bin. As long as there is hatred, there will be a motive to attack. We must find a way to obtain this motive so that we can openly deal with Yao Bin in the future. However, there are many people interested in him right now. We have already attacked once, so there is no need to be in such a hurry to attack again. Let the others rush ahead. Remember, sometimes when you watch from the sidelines, you can discover many things that you can't." The black-clothed man said, "This subordinate understands. It is just that if we delay for too long, don't worry, it is impossible to refine and absorb the demon blood crystal in a short period of time. Taking a step back, even if Yao Bin really manages to do it, I still have a way to make him spit it out with interest." The black-clothed man didn't say anything else. After bowing, he stood up and left. The figure turned around. Because of the dim light, it was extremely blurry. It didn't seem to be the face of a person, but rather a fierce demon mask. "Yao Bin, the lost demon blood crystal, is it on you or not? I'm really looking forward to it." In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Everything was calm and tranquil. The mess in Dawn Perch Inn had already been cleaned up. Stepping on the light of dawn, a cultivator quickly arrived. He flew straight to Qin Yu's residence and respectfully said, "Lord Yao Bin, I have come on orders. I ask that you follow me to the city lore mansion." The courtyard doors opened from within. A slightly cramped Duan San had changed into the gray robes of a servant. He cupped his hands together and bowed. "Please wait a moment. My master will be here soon." The messenger cultivator was startled and then revealed a look of envy. Being a servant wasn't a glorious matter, but one had to look at who they were following. A servant of a demonic path disciple could also be considered a member of the demonic path and could follow them into a small world. Just the heaven-defying cultivation environment alone was enough for countless cultivators to flock to. Thus, every time the demon ascension gate opened, there would be countless demonic path cultivators. Some of them came from extraordinary backgrounds and would take the initiative to apply to become a servant of a new disciple. Besides having a bit of good looks, this boy's aura was ordinary. Yet, he had actually been chosen. He really had some dog's-it luck. Chapter 5:23. Following behind Duan Saner, out of the courtyard was his sister, Duan Jiu. She was really like a Jiu flower, a delicate and beautiful girl. She wasn't tall, but every part of her body was proportionally balanced. Because she was weak and sickly all year round, her skin was pale, and one could see the tiny light blue blood vessels beneath her skin. Now that she was wearing the same color-made dress as Duan Saner, it didn't hide her beauty at all. Instead, it made one want to protect her from the bottom of their hearts. When the reporting cultivator saw Duan Jiu, he was stunned for a moment. Looking at the similarities between the two of them, a look of understanding appeared on his face. He seemed to have found the reason why Duan Saner was chosen. So when Qinyu arrived, he could clearly sense something strange in this person's eyes. Of course, when Qinyu seriously looked at him, he found that this person had already changed into an extremely respectful appearance. Gossiping and whatnot, of course it was okay, but if one didn't know when to stop, that would be asking for trouble. Lord Yaobin, the transmission array has been prepared. You and the other disciples will enter the demonic path's small world in batches today. Please follow me to the City Lord Mansion as soon as possible to avoid affecting the transmission arrangements. Qinyu nodded. Let's go. The current shopkeeper of Dawn Perch Restaurant was still the old man who loved money. He stood at the place where the front yard and backyard connected, watching Duan Saner and Duan Jiu walk over. His eyes were slightly excited. However, the two sides didn't communicate, otherwise it would only bring more trouble to this old man who was about to leave. Duan Saner swore in his heart that if he was successful in the future, he would find a way to repay this uncle of his. Sitting in the flying carriage arranged by the City Lord's mansion, Duan Saner and Duan Jiu slowly calmed down. But looking at the luxurious decorations inside the carriage, they couldn't help but feel a bit uncomfortable. Qinyu saw this but didn't say anything. There were some things that couldn't be solved with words alone. They would just have to get used to it in the future. He smoothly arrived at the City Lord's mansion. Today, when he looked at the majestic mansion again, although it was still as majestic as before, it was no longer as terrifying and oppressive as before. It seemed that because of the changes at the Demon Ascension Gate, the demonic path's supreme elders that had gathered here had already left. Qinyu's heart relaxed. This was absolutely a good thing for him, because at the very least, no one had managed to obtain any evidence against him. As for suspicions, as the last person to leave the ancient tree monster, even if everyone knew that he didn't have the strength to complete the hunt, he still couldn't completely wash away all suspicions. But now, Qinyu was a member of the demonic path, and his performance was outstanding. Many people knew of his existence. Even if there were people who harbored ill intentions, they wouldn't dare to make things difficult for him without evidence. However, in the future, he would have to be more careful and try not to give others anything to use against him. Inside the City Lord's mansion, one of the palaces had disappeared without a trace. In its place was a massive formation that was incredibly complex and took up an area of several acres. A group of expressionless demonic path array masters were seizing this time to make final adjustments and experiments. Right now, the one who stayed behind to manage the teleportation was the master of Heavenly Demon City, a thin, purple-robed old man. Although his appearance wasn't anything to look at, for him to be able to control the Heavenly Demon City of the demonic path for over 1,000 years, his strength couldn't be underestimated. Even if he restrained his aura, it still left one's chest feeling heavy. After Chinyu arrived, he verified his identity and smoothly received his transmission number. The fourth batch, because the demonic path had decided to absorb all the surviving cultivators from the small worlds, there were nearly 2,000 new disciples. This was the highest number of disciples the demonic path had ever recruited in history. In addition, there were some demonic path disciples that brought servants with them like Chinyu, making the number even more astonishing. Even though the transmission array was temporarily strengthened, the entire transmission process had to be divided into 5 batches. The first batch of disciples entered the transmission array. With a loud shout, the crowd began to clamor. Several hundred new demonic path disciples flew out with excited expressions. In order to leave the Demon Ascension Gate's small world alive, the demonic path disciples had to have good luck. But besides luck, everything else wasn't certain. Strictly speaking, out of the nearly 2,000 new disciples, there weren't many that truly met the requirements to become a demonic path disciple. This was because when the sage controlled the ancient tree monster avatar and hunted them down, the ones he chose were relatively outstanding demonic path cultivators. For many people today, being able to become a demonic path disciple was a completely pleasant surprise. Because of this, besides setting the highest number in history, the quality of the disciples was also the lowest in history. It was known as the worst batch since the founding of the demonic path. The massive array formation on the ground lit up. Boundless strength erupted, instantly distorting space. The radiant divine light made it hard for one to look at it directly. Bang! A straight beam of light smashed into the skies, breaking apart the vault of heaven and forming a rainbow-colored vortex. A moment later, the humming sound subsided and the light slowly faded away. The distorted space was restored to normal. The first transmission array formation ended. Many cultivators revealed excited expressions. They thought that this was truly worthy of being the demonic path. Even though it was only a single transmission array formation, it still created such a majestic momentum. And most importantly, after today, they would officially become members of the demonic path. After an hour of adjustment, the second transmission array formation began. As if they had gained experience, they paused for a moment and then began the third transmission array formation. The fourth batch of disciples entered the transmission array. Chinyu turned and ordered, "Follow me." Duan San and Duan Ji nodded. The two of them had never seen such a grand scene before. They were already nervous beyond belief. Luckily, Chinyu took care of them. He didn't advance too quickly, and the two of them followed closely behind. Because of this, when they arrived at the transmission array formation, it was already filled with cultivators. Chinyu handed over the transmission number and smoothly entered the array formation. But Duan San and Duan Ji were stopped. "This batch has already been filled. Wait for the next batch." Chinyu turned and said, "They are my servants. Since that's the case, I will go with them." The array master had no expression. "You have already entered the transmission array. If you leave now, it will affect the safety of the array formation. Do not delay." He lifted a hand. "Prepare to be transmitted." Chinyu frowned. Duan San hurriedly said, "Master, you can go first. This is the City Lord Mansion. No one will make things difficult for us here." The array formation began to shine with light. Chinyu took a deep breath. "Be careful. I will be waiting for you." Bang! A beam of light shot into the skies, crashing into the vault of heaven. His field of vision instantly darkened. When it recovered, Chinyu discovered that he was in a sea of stars. Beneath his feet was a giant jade disc carved with countless runes. It slowly rotated, carrying everyone through the sea of stars. Everyone's eyes widened. As they looked at the scene before them, their faces were filled with awe. Chinyu's complexion didn't change, but his heart shook. This was because he discovered that the sea of stars in front of him wasn't an illusion. In other words, they had borrowed the power of the array formation to tear open the world barrier and arrive at the outer realm. Could it be that the small world of the demonic path's holy land was actually outside this world? Suddenly, the runes on the surface of the jade disk beneath their feet began to shine. A barrier of light appeared, covering everyone within. In the next moment, a meteor with a long flaming tail howled into everyone's line of sight. Everyone cried out in alarm. Their hearts leapt into their throats. Luckily, they didn't collide with each other. The two sides passed each other several miles apart. Even so, the terrifying strength carried with it still caused the jade disk to violently tremble. Everyone found it hard to steady themselves, and their faces paled. An hour later, a point of light appeared. It was like a lighthouse, guiding the jade disk forward. Suddenly, as if it had crashed into an invisible stream of water, the jade disk clearly became sluggish and began to slowly squeeze out of this area. In the next moment, everything opened up in front of everyone. A brand new world appeared in front of them, and in the skies hung 9 great suns. Chapter 5:24. 9 great suns shined brilliantly, but they didn't dazzle the eyes at all. There wasn't any burning heat, only endless warmth. Bathing in the sunlight, one felt as if they were soaking in a hot spring. Their entire body was warm, and faint traces of heat constantly fused into their bodies. Chinyu silently felt the warm energy spread through his body, his heart shaking. This strange energy could actually simultaneously nourish the mortal body, magic power, and soul. Although the amount was small and the degree of improvement was almost imperceptible, if it were accumulated over time, the increase would be considerable. Moreover, the entire Holy Land's small world was filled with rich heaven and earth spiritual strength that nearly condensed into mist. With such a cultivation environment, it was no wonder that countless people were willing to become servants in order to join the demonic path. The demonic path's holy land forbids any noise. Everyone, follow the directions and enter the designated area. Once everyone has arrived, we will send you away. External Affairs Protector Exian frowned, a gloomy look in his eyes. The great figures had decided to recruit nearly 2,000 disciples, so they naturally had their own considerations. Protector Exian didn't dare to express any dissatisfaction, but the sudden increase in work had left him battered and exhausted for the past several days, so he naturally wasn't in a good mood. He had originally only prepared for 200 new disciples, but now it had increased by 10 times. Even if he had 3 heads and 6 arms, he still wouldn't have enough time in several days. Without any other choice, Protector Exian could only temporarily select a batch of houses that he had prepared as rewards for outstanding disciples in the last great examination. Because of this, he had received no small amount of complaints. If there were some outstanding characters in this batch of disciples, Protector Exian would feel a bit better. At the very least, he would be able to form a good relationship with them today. Perhaps they would be of great use in the future. But look, all you could see were crooked melons and cracked dates. It was simply a tragic sight. He really couldn't understand why the lords would accept such trash. This was simply dragging down the overall quality of the demonic path. In truth, this was also the attitude held by the vast majority of cultivators in the demonic path. Therefore, after the initial excitement, shock, and joy, the high-spirited newbies subconsciously shrank their necks when they were stared at by unfriendly gazes, and they obediently landed on the ground. The first 3 batches of people were all here, and the earliest batch had already waited for over 2 hours. From this, it could be seen that they didn't regard these new disciples as anything special at all. Chinyu smiled inwardly. Indeed, bullying the weak and fearing the strong was a fine traditional virtue. Even in the demonic path, it was a widespread inheritance. He closed his eyes and meditated. What the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve. At the same time, he began to think about how he would act after entering the demonic path. The truth was that the main theme had already been set. If Qin Yu wanted to rise up as soon as possible and obtain enough authority to become a pivotal figure in the demonic path, he needed to display a sufficiently outstanding performance. Thus, he couldn't keep a low profile. It was just that with the appearance of the demon blood crystals, there were many people that were secretly harboring evil intentions. If he continued to maintain a high profile, then it was likely that someone would grab hold of him. This matter must be carefully considered. There weren't many good men and women in the demonic path. If the demon blood crystal was exposed, then Qin Yu was sure that he would immediately be dismembered and then cleanly divided up by others. It had to be known that the demon blood crystal was still within his body. Although it was constantly nourishing his mortal body, at this rate of absorption, it would take at least 8 to 10 years for it to become his own. What a delightful yet headache-inducing matter. As Qin Yu was lost in thought, he was awakened by a loud rumble. The last batch of cultivators had arrived. He looked up into the skies. Ripples rose up in space as a giant disk squeezed out from within. In the next moment, everyone on the disk revealed shocked expressions. The cultivators to the left and right couldn't help but reveal looks of pride, as if they had forgotten that not too long ago, they were also like bumpkins. But now, Qin Yu was in the mood to show that he was experienced and knowledgeable. He swept his eyes around and soon found the siblings Duan San, and Duan Jiu. He frowned, revealing a cold intent. The fifth batch of cultivators flew off the disk. Duan San-er's figure shook, and he nearly fell from the skies. Duan Jiu quickly caught him, preventing him from suffering the tragic fate of falling to his death as soon as he entered the Holy Land. Even so, he still caused everyone to roar with laughter. Protector Xian's eyes twitched. Although this person was only wearing the clothes of servant, the servants of a dignified, demonic path Holy Land were all top figures. Yet such a shameful thing had actually mixed in. Humph! With a cold snort, Protector Xian ordered his assistant to take care of the following matters. Then, he turned and left. If he continued to watch, he feared that his blood pressure would rise and his blood vessels would explode. Duan San-er's face flushed red with shame. Master, I've lost face for you. Duan Jiu tried to defend herself. Big brother, it was clearly someone who deliberately injured you. Duan San shouted out, Shut up. He could guess that the reason he was being targeted was because of Qin Yu. But now, his master had just entered the demonic path, so it wasn't appropriate for him to cause unnecessary trouble. However, some people clearly didn't want to see them leave like this. A new disciple walked over and coldly said, Junior apprentice Brother Yao Bin, right? Your servant is too insolent to think that he would dare to offend me. Today, I only had one of my subordinates give him a small punishment. I hope that you will discipline him well. Next time, it won't be so simple. He spoke with an aggressive and arrogant attitude. Behind him, a tall and bald fellow with a fierce face grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth as if he didn't care at all. His words instantly attracted everyone's attention. After a moment of surprise, they immediately revealed looks of excitement. No matter what the reason was, it was fine as long as there was some fun to watch. Moreover, after entering the demonic path, as cultivators of the same generation, they were destined to compete with each other. If the two of them had a conflict because of this, they might be severely punished. Wouldn't that mean they could eliminate 2 competitors ahead of time? Brother Yao Bin, do something. They've already come knocking on our door. So how can we endure this? Erupt with your little universe and punch that guy's face to pieces. I'm optimistic about you. Duan San hurriedly said, Master, it's just a small injury. There's no need to worry about it. Duan Jiu bit her lips, her eyes full of anger. How is this a small injury? If it weren't for her big brother's quick reactions, he would have already been sent flying out of the transmission disk. That would have killed him. Qin Yu keenly discovered a flash of urgency in this Gong Yu's eyes. He really was doing this on purpose. After the Qi family, was there someone else who couldn't restrain themselves and wanted to attack him? Today's plan wasn't too clever, but these youths were proud and arrogant. If they were angered and a battle broke out on the first day, no matter what the reason was, they likely wouldn't end well. This person in front of him must have obtained some sort of promise, so he wouldn't worry if something happened. If he was caught, the results wouldn't be good. His thoughts raced. After figuring everything out, Qin Yu's complexion returned to tranquility. His eyes were deep and faint. Senior apprentice Brother Gong, right? I have no idea whose dog you are today, but I'm sorry, but I will have to disappoint you today because I won't come into conflict with you. But I will remember you. In the future, there will be opportunities for fellow apprentices to get closer. What does senior apprentice Brother Gong think? Gong Zhen's complexion stiffened and anger flashed in his eyes. He clenched his teeth, preparing to forcefully attack and force Qin Yu to break the rules together with him. But he saw Qin Yu turn and walk towards a demonic path cultivator. After a long time, he finally gave up. Senior apprentice brother, if I had attacked just now, what would have been the result? The demonic path cultivator revealed a strange look. He hesitated for a moment and said, if a new disciple breaks the rules, the punishment is always heavy. If you had attacked, the best result would have been 50 strokes of the paddle, and you would have to stay in the dungeon for some time. Qin Yu cupped his hands together. Thank you for telling me, senior apprentice brother. The person chuckled several times. There is no need to thank me. You should think about just who you have offended. Otherwise, it will be hard for you to have peace in the future. This person had good intentions. Qin Yu nodded and remembered his appearance. This person had been sent here to greet a group of mediocre new disciples. It seemed that this person hadn't been doing too well in the demonic path. If there was a chance in the future, Qin Yu didn't mind helping him out. Zhang Xian was very curious. How could New Boy be targeted by someone? Although he had warned him, he didn't believe that this calm boy would have a good ending. To dare to secretly plot against him on the first day, the person behind the scenes must be quite capable. Even if he could avoid it once or twice, could he avoid it every time? It was only a matter of time before he met with misfortune. But this sort of situation wasn't rare in the demonic path. He had only said a few words of advice on a whim and didn't place it in his heart. If Zhang Xian knew that the boy across from him was thinking of supporting him in the future, he wouldn't know whether to laugh or cry. All right, everyone follow me. We're going to your residences. Protector Xian's assistant gloomily said. He smacked his lips and couldn't help but curse. What a bunch of lucky bastards. Because these residences had important uses, whether it was their location or the scale of construction, they were all very good. Many senior disciples found it difficult to obtain one, but now they had been given to these poor people. The assistant felt extremely unbalanced. They sped along the way, passing through mountains and rivers and across plains. The vastness of the demonic path's holy land was revealed to everyone. There were over 2,000 people here, attracting everyone's attention. After they learned that these were new disciples, the demonic path cultivators all revealed mocking expressions. So it was this bunch of good-for-nothings that had walked into Dog's Luck. As they looked around, their lips curled up even more. They really were trash that had turned into dregs. An hour later, the group finally arrived at their destination. In front of them was a towering mountain. The mountain was tall and straight, exuding a cold and arrogant aura. The assistant was the first to land. He glanced around with a bit of reluctance in his eyes. This place should have been his own residence. He couldn't think about it. It hurt his heart. As new disciples, you will be placed here. Starting from the foot of the mountain, the heaven and earth spiritual strength will gradually increase, and the size of the residences will also increase. In order to be fair, the distribution of residences will be based on your cultivation. You will have to rely on your own ability. The assistant flicked his sleeves, and a pure white crystal fell to the ground. Strike this stone with all your strength, and it will release red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and purple lights. The difficulty of the 7 colors will gradually increase. Let's begin according to the transmission order. The first new disciple to attack took a long time to gather his strength. With a loud shout, he punched out. The pure white crystal emitted a faint hum, and a dark red color flashed across its surface. The assistant's lips twitched. He waved his hand. The last one stand at the back. The person turned and drew back in shame. Then came the second person. His performance was slightly better. Although he was also red, the color was much richer. He stood in front of the first person. Red, red, red. It was no wonder that he was looked down upon. It had to be known that even a Holy Land servant with a bit of strength could strike this testing stone. Ordinary disciples were at least orange, and it was normal for them to be yellow. But these people, Chapter 5:25. Before Chin Yu made his move, the one with the best performance was blue. Although his color was a bit dim, for better or worse, he was still a fifth-grade disciple. This result was considered quite good even amongst the veteran demonic path disciples. Without accident, he would surely have some achievements in the future. The assistant revealed a smile. He whispered some words and agreed that once he settled down, everyone would come out to eat a meal and be intimate with each other. This scene caused everyone's eyes to heat up. But this was the cold and cruel reality. Those without strength would never obtain respect. Duan Jiu looked at the newly promoted disciple who was trying his best to maintain his composure but couldn't hide it no matter what. She gently pursed her lips. She knew that this person was fierce and belonged to a master that she couldn't come into contact with before. But there was one thing she was sure of, and that was that her master was stronger than him. That night at Don Perchin, she and her big brother had hidden in a room and witnessed the entire process of the old servant's appearance and escape. Although it seemed as if her master hadn't done anything at all, her big brother had told her that this was true fierceness. Duan Jiu thought about it and agreed. To stand there without moving and then finally scare away the enemy. What could be called fierceness if that wasn't fierceness? What's more, she later heard the news that someone in the Chi family had died that night. It was someone extraordinary. From that day onwards, the shopkeeper uncle's attitude towards her master became even more respectful. What would her master do today? Duan Jiu blinked her eyes, a bit of anticipation growing in her heart. Of course, part of the reason for this anticipation was to tell these people not to think of bullying her and her big brother anymore. They were following a very fierce master. In fact, Chin Yu's performance didn't disappoint Miss Duan. When it was his turn, he calmly stepped forward. His steps were steady and unhurried. The assistant glanced at him and then lowered his head. He picked at his nails, his expression listless. Early Blue Sea is still far from being called a revered. He's another trash that stepped on dog shit to enter our demonic path. TSK, TSK. In the past, in order to enter the demonic path, just how much suffering did we have to endure and how much effort did we put in? You might be putting on an act now, but what use is that? Whether you're a mule or a horse, we'll find out soon enough. Hum. This sort of trash, even if he was lucky enough to enter the demonic path, he was still doomed to be at the bottom. If he failed the decennial examination 3 times in a row, he would still be kicked out. While he was lost in his thoughts, he suddenly heard a buzzing sound, and the ground beneath his feet began to tremble slightly. The assistant's thoughts were in a mess. He was startled when he heard the commotion. Before he could regain his composure, he looked up and saw the demonic path disciple who was maintaining order next to him. This person is called Zhang Xian. He has a calm temperament, and he does things with a sense of propriety. It's just that his luck isn't too good. He made a mistake in his early years and wasn't taken seriously. Originally, he was thinking of finding an opportunity to promote him to a steward of the External Affairs Department. Although he was just an assistant protector, he still had the qualifications to be a small leader. But what happened today? Although his status wasn't high, for better or worse, he was still an old man of the demonic path. For him to reveal such an idiotic expression in front of a group of newcomers was simply shameful. The assistant decided in his heart that Zhang Xian could not be used. He had no shrewdness at all and would definitely fly into a rage when something happened. There was no value in grooming him. The assistant sentenced him to death in his heart. He turned his head and looked at Zhang Xian with some curiosity. Just what was happening? Then, his mouth opened a little at a time. The exaggerated angle made one secretly sigh with emotion. He was truly worthy of being a demonic path disciple. His muscles and bones were amazingly flexible. Just look at his mouth. It was so big that it could almost fit an oxen's side. Unfortunately, no one had the time to look at the assistant's disgraceful appearance. This was because everyone at the foot of the mountain felt as if they had been struck in the head with a stick. Their heads buzzed, and they lost the ability to think. At the foot of the mountain, the testing stone that had been placed on the ground was still constantly trembling. It was because of its trembling that the ground began to shake. The rich purple color was like a blossoming flower, wantonly unfolding in the air. That kind of purity was dazzling and dazzling. The assistant's entire mind was immersed in it. He didn't know how long he swayed before he finally regained his composure. Then, his lips began to tremble. Deep purple, this was absolutely deep purple. Moreover, Qin Yu's fist had caused the testing stone to tremble. This proved that the strength of his fist had surpassed the limit that the testing stone could withstand. Although the testing stone for new disciples was only the introductory version, the highest strength it could withstand was still at the peak blue sea level. Thinking of this, the assistant's scalp tingled. If he didn't see this with his own eyes, he would never have believed it. Peak blue sea. This boy actually had peak blue sea strength. The assistant closed his mouth with great effort. He was so excited that his entire body shivered. At this time, he felt as if he were standing at the turning point of his destiny. Whether he would be mediocre or rich in his next life, it would all depend on this person in front of him. What nonsense! To have peak blue sea strength in the entrance test, even looking at the demonic path, this sort of character was extremely rare. To say that he had a bright future was already underestimating him. His future was simply limitless. Perhaps one day in the future, he would become an influential figure of the demonic path. If he could be on good terms with him while he was still humble, was there even a need to think about how much of an investment he would receive? This was a lucky chance bestowed by the heavens. A lucky chance bestowed by the heavens. The assistant was extremely excited. He hurriedly took out the list of new disciples. He had to remember this boy's identity first. As soon as he said his name and hinted that he already knew he was extraordinary, the distance between the two of them was instantly pulled closer. As for this Zhang Xian, his luck was truly good. He had seen the entire conversation between the two of them when Qin Yu questioned them. At that time, Qin Yu hadn't revealed his strength yet, so this could be considered an early investment. He would definitely leave behind a good impression. Comrade Zhang Xian was worth cultivating. Perhaps one day, he would suddenly have a reversal of fortune. As for Comrade Zhang Xian, he was still confused. He looked at Qin Yu in front of him and then at the trembling purple testing stone, his face filled with confusion. Duan Jiu clenched her fists. Her pale face flushed with excitement, like a bright red apple, extremely alluring. Master was indeed the fiercest, and he was even fiercer than she had imagined. Purple, this was the highest level of purple. She proudly swept her eyes over the shocked and dazed figures around her. She couldn't help but look up, revealing her snow-white neck. We are servants personally chosen by Master. In the future, there won't be anyone that dares to bully Big Brother. Gongjin stiffened. The bald servant behind her had a fierce and ferocious expression on his face. His eyes were filled with fear. Before they acted, they had also inquired about some information, but they weren't clear. They only knew that this surname, Yao, was somewhat strong. But if one could become a demonic path disciple, no matter how weak they were, they still had some skill. Gongjin didn't care about this at all. But now, who could tell her why he had peak blue sea strength? Peak blue sea. That was a peak that many people would never be able to reach in their lives. If he could take another step forward and become a calamity immortal. Gongjin's face was drained of blood. Fear gushed out from the depths of her heart, drowning her. Countless eyes fell on Qin Yu, revealing a deep awe. The assistant had finally found Qin Yu's identity information. He swept out with his divine sense and remembered everything. He revealed the brightest smile on his face and was about to step forwards when a sneer sounded out from the crowd. So what if he's a peak blue sea? How could someone over 100 years old, or even older, compare to us? 100 years old, the assistant paused. Another new disciple said, "This is fellow Taoist Yao Bin from the Black Demon sect. According to what I know, fellow Taoist Yao joined midway and had a profound blue sea cultivation in the past, and he has stayed in the Black Demon sect for over 80 years. This person's information was even more accurate. Everyone's spirits rose. If he was a blue sea 80 years ago, then how old was he now? A conservative estimate would be 200 years old or even more. What else is there to say? He's just an old fellow. When we reach his age, we might not be any worse than him. Moreover, a blue sea that was over 100 years old had limited potential. If he made another breakthrough in the future, it was unlikely he would step into the calamity immortal realm." The assistant looked over. As he saw Qin Yu's calm expression and that he didn't refute him, he was secretly disappointed. But he still squeezed out a smile. Fellow Taoist Yao Bin's cultivation has blasted out a deep purple color. There is no doubt that he will be the champion. Fellow Taoist can choose any courtyard on this mountain. His tone was friendly, but compared to the excitement from before, it was as different as the heavens and earth. If one didn't reach the calamity immortal realm, then in the demonic path, they would never be able to reach the highest heavens. Peak blue sea, the demonic path had accumulated over tens of millions of years. There was truly a great number of them. Every year, there would be a peak blue sea cultivator that neared the end of their lifespan and couldn't make a breakthrough. They would die in their cave dwellings with hatred in their hearts. A lifetime of bitter cultivation, tens of thousands of years of struggle, all turned into bubbles. Of course, a peak blue sea was still an absolute powerhouse. Even in the entire land of divinity and demons, they could be considered an overlord. It was just that in the demonic path, the halo of such a powerhouse was greatly weakened. Qin Yu had a calm expression. He had replaced Yao Bin's identity, so he naturally couldn't refute these facts. But he believed that the true high-level figures of the demonic path would definitely know the truth. For instance, the two at Don Perchin. His performance today was enough, and it would soon reach the upper echelons, attracting more attention for himself. And now, this kind of attention could become a protective barrier around one's body, causing those with ill intentions to feel fear in their hearts. As for what the people in front of him thought, what they thought, was that important? To be honest, Qin Yu didn't care at all. Therefore, he withdrew his hand and calmly walked to the side. When the tiger is away from the mountain, the monkey is king. In this generation of disciples, there are several proud sons of heaven. For instance, the Zhao family scion, Zhao Qinyuan. He is a peak, peerless, proud son of heaven. The Dong family's Dong Hanzhu is also a rare character. And there is also the Western Tomb's highest Du Tian, whose Tao arts are unparalleled under the heavens. As for Zhou Feng Wang and Mu Qingwan, those two proud daughters of heaven are also outstanding existences that illuminate the highest heavens. These true proud sons of heaven have already been chosen by the elders to be their disciples. They entered the Holy Land ahead of time to cultivate and aren't together with us. Gong Zhen sneered again and again. Otherwise, how could our limelight have been stolen by an old fellow today? Since he had already offended them, there was no longer any fear. These words resonated with everyone. Many people nodded inwardly, looking at Qin Yu with a bit more ridicule in their eyes. So what if he was a peak blue sea? They were all disciples of the demonic path, so how could he dare to attack them? Moreover, it was unknown who was stronger and who was weaker in the future. As long as he didn't reach the calamity immortal realm, there was no need to fear him. Duan Jiyu's chest heaved up and down. She was so angry that her lips turned white. Why did these bastards always target my master? But was what they said true? Did her master really not have any potential left? Duan San let out a deep breath. He patted her shoulder and smiled. Our lives were saved by master, so why do we need to think so much about it? We just need to remember that no matter what happens, we are all master's servants. It is enough that we work for master loyally. Duan Jiu quietly explained, I know that Big Brother is just not worth it for Master. He is a good person. It was no wonder that when her big brother was injured, her master chose to endure it. So he had his own difficulties. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.